you wrong.
Speaking of which, here we are.
Yo, what up, what up, what up? Yeah, man. So, like, all right. I haven't been doing a whole lot of YouTube this week, but I have been doing a lot of research, right? I've had a lot of mentalities like running around inside of my head that I kind of want to get worked out. You know what I mean? The end of the day. So, like, I came across this ideology last night as I was driving down the road called communitarianism, right? And I I don't think that I'm a communitarian, right? Maybe a communitarian nationalist, right? Which is like, the absolute anti-liberal. And right? You know what I'm saying? Like, but so I was standing here and I was having this thought pattern about it. And the reason why I was thinking about it because I was like really thinking about this video I saw from Skeptical Waves about the radical fucking libertarianism of Frank Van Dunn, right? Where he goes into like the real history of the Catholic Church. And when he did so, he stood here and he had this mental conversation. He had this conversation about how, like, basically the church stood up for the rights of like general families and the autonomy of families and communities against kings and monarchs, which when we think of a state, right? You know what I mean? Like you think a state goes back to like Arabia or like Mesopotamia or Greece or Rome, right? But the idea of a state, right, is actually a pretty new idea altogether, right? Like the mentality that, and the reason this is the reason why like liberalism became a thing, is because like the idea that back in Roman times, like the emperor or the Senate would have anything to do with your household was completely a foreign ideology, right? Like they basically just dealt with you on a territorial or a city level where it's like your city has to pay this much tax. Other than that, like we don't really give a fuck what you do. Right. You know what I mean? And like they set up like spending and you know what I mean, like architecture projects and you know, I mean projects of this type of like that would serve the empire as a whole or the country as a whole, right? But they would never ever think to stand here and like dictate how your household would be run. So that's the reason for liberalism is because like after the fall of Rome and after the Middle Ages and in the Renaissance when you had like these Italian city states, right, which were literal city like Italian city states, they sat here and started having individuals like think about, you know what I mean, like how individuals actually lived and how communities operated and how it actually affected the economy inside of a city, right? And it dictated the way they were able to do business. And so therefore they took over the role of like like your city's your mayor or you know what I'm saying, your lord, your king, whatever it was, would stand here, your prince would stand here and dictate how, you know what I'm saying, like your entire like family lived, right? And there was always an argument with the church about that because the church, like, you know what I'm saying, wanted you to have the autonomy to be able to make these free associations and shit. And so liberalism was a mentality that came out of this that said, like, we still have to stand up for individual liberties, right? Because we want it's a very cosmopolitan ideology. They want, I'm gonna stand here. Let me put this up, right? Because I actually prepared some shit for this, right?
Right. Doing better than I am.
Yeah, right. Like, what does the term liberalism mean? Liberalism, political doctrine that takes protecting and enhancing the freedom of the individual to be the central problem of politics. Liberals typically believe that government is necessary to protect individuals from being harmed by others, but they also recognize that government itself can pose a threat to liberty, right? So, like, the mentality is that liberalism is an ideology that stands here and tries to have the individual, you know what I'm saying, recognized as an individual inside of the economy and not the individual inside of a community or the individual inside of a household. And they don't recognize you as a household, which is kind of where we ended up right now. And this is why liberalism, I think, is failing, which is one of the reasons, right? Is the fact that liberalism at its end point wants everybody to be an individual, including your kids, so they're not a part, right? You know what I'm saying? Like they're not a part of your family. They're part of, you know what I'm saying, the greater economy and society as a whole, because that's what's dictated by, you know what I'm saying, your government and shit. TK, my nigga, how you feeling about this mentality?
I'm with you. Can I give a real quick example to kind of illustrate what you're talking about?
By all means,
Please, I am lost.
Okay. So the basic idea is that a liberal ideology puts a person as an individual at the center of what it's trying to maximize, right? And it's probably worth noting that we're talking specifically about materialistic individualism, like that as far as the Western world goes. You need to make that specification because, like, there can be non-individualistic liberalisms, right? Where and this is actually what more of Islam does. Like they have they concentrate on a person being a part of the family a little bit more, or as a part of the community. This also means that they have no problem like sending people off to go blow themselves up.
Well, like,
but wait. Let me.
I don't think that's not liberalism, right? That's in no way is Islam liberalistic.
Right. Well, it's not. Okay, so just let me at least
rock on, my brother. Rock on. Go ahead.
All right, so like I'm not. Okay, so let's just get off that particular.
Let's try and stick to something that's more closer to home in the U.S.
So, heroin addiction, right?
Okay.
In California, most of what happens for the liberal solution of treating people who are addicted to drugs and heroin is that they give them like clean needles and like maybe a baggie full of toiletries and probably some money that they're going to go either exchange for drugs or they're going to barter into something that they can use for drugs, right? That's the solution of liberalism as we see it here in the West, for the problem of a person is addicted to a extremely harmful substance and they cannot stop themselves from taking it to the point where it has ruined their lives. In not Saudi Arabia, in Afghanistan, where the Taliban just took over, you know, our guys over there. But what they have done is, because Afghanistan also has an opioid epidemic. And so what they're doing is that they're taking them into monasteries, they're kicking the shit out of them if they try to take drugs, and they're making them be monks for a while until they can get their shit together. Which one is honestly better? I think the Afghanistanis have the right idea on this one personally, but they are in no way what you would call liberal, at least on this particular subject. Right.
Okay. Well, like, let me put it like this, right? So our mentality about drug addiction is a very individualistic ideology. It's we're going to fix the person, right? But the problem is that, as much as I hate to say this, right? You know what I mean? Because like, you know, like I've always had this mentality of like, you know, you bowl through on your own, right? Because that's my fucking MO. But like the reality is you're part of a community, you're part of a family, and you're supposed to be part of a community and a family, right? And you're not fixing the community and the family, dealing with those issues that cause the fucking problem, that allow the problem.
Right. You there, Tom?
Tom?
Okay, so another aspect that I think we need to bring into this here is like, are you actually free if you're addicted to drugs?
That is kind of an odd question.
I don't think so.
Probably not.
I don't
think Doku,
you are... What up, Doku?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey.
Not a whole lot. We're talking about why liberalism failed. Do you want to give a stab at it? Either that or that question that I just brought up kind of tangentially?
Well, yeah, I was going to let you guys try to go at it so I could ease myself into the conversation a little bit, but I'll take a stab at what you're saying, TK. if you're addicted to something, you're in a weird limbo between being beholden to something that has a physiological control over you, but you still, I mean, there's still plenty of people, myself included, where I can go days, weeks, even months without smoking or drinking if I truly want to. So am I truly free? Yes, but my freedom is compromised by addiction. Well, I'll put it that way.
Oddly enough, that's just an analogy for the government itself. Are we free of the government as it is? Not really.
Yeah, but my point is more of like, there's multiple ways to look at freedom, and one thing that one could point out that freedom is having the ability to choose rather than necessarily having your choice respected, right? Because if you're being coerced by someone, you can't call that freedom to obey that coercion, right? You are not free to submit to a dude who's got a gun to your head, right? That's not freedom. We can agree on that outlier case at the very least. And so like, if you have some force in your life that it has a controlling influence, it is possible by the removal of certain decisions from you for you to be more free. Like, this is something that can happen. Now, whether or not we could engineer some sort of society or government or whatever to actually thread that needle and provide more actual choices to a person, I don't know. But like, there's a lot of things in our society which are framed as choices which do not actually give people more choices. Like, giving an 18-year-old the opportunity to choose to put themselves millions of dollars in debt that is not dischargeable upon bankruptcy, like
a college loan is what we're getting at.
Right. Like, are you actually...
TK, that's the reason I say it's your freedom is compromised, but I don't think your freedom is completely stripped away from you, but it does test your convictions to a higher degree than it's going to do if that element was not involved in your life. So are you still free? Yes, but again, it's going to be more difficult for you because you're going to have conviction and discipline in order to overcome those hardships.
Well, like, okay, Joku, but like a third of people won't.
Like, yo, can I finish my thing? Because like I accidentally or my internet died. Like, I don't know why I had to go to my fucking phone and shit. Right. And by the way, I'm gonna say what up to Jim McIntosh, Ricky Dawson, motherfucking Ryoko Hakabi, and who the fuck fucking Thunder the Carver Kids and Samson Simpson out in the motherfucking chat. Welcome, my brothers, welcome. Right. So like, the mentality is this, right? So like, when you're dealing with addiction with individuals, the other problem is you're not dealing with this as a community. Right. You're not dealing with this as a family. You're not like adjusting the motherfucking family. You're not adjusting your community, and you're not treating a human being as part of a community, which you are. Right. And that's, I think, a lot of the issue of liberalism, where we stand here and we view individuals as these, you know what I'm saying, like just simple creatures. When the truth of the matter is, we're a social fucking creature at the end of the day. Like, we're supposed to have family. We're supposed to have a community. We're supposed to be tied to each other. And we're supposed to be tied to like the fucking land that we live on and our fucking geography and who we are and our culture and our heritage and all the fucking things that go with it. Right. And I think that's one of the reasons why fucking liberalism motherfucking is failing as a whole, is because of the fact that, like, legitimately we've stood here and had this, and like, as I said, like, this comes from the merchant class of like Italy and fucking Britain and Spain and France, and these cosmopolitan elites in these places that stood here and wanted to have the ability not to be tied to a community and not to have this mentality, which is why, like, I've always had like this major problem with, you know, I mean, like a lot of these like fucking French philosophers as a whole, like Voltaire and shit. You know what I mean? Because like, he stands here and says like, I don't want to fucking stand here and say that like an earthquake's a real thing, because like fucking, I don't want to stand here and allow the Earth's geography and geology and the fucking actions around me to fucking affect how I live, which is fucking retarded because motherfucker, you live on a planet, dummy. You know what I mean? Like if a tree falls on your house, nigga, you're gonna have to pull it off. Shut the fuck up, stupid. You know what I mean? Right?
I choose to live in a reality where my house is not burning down. Literally the epitome of the dog in the house burning down. This is fine.
Like
no, the fire doesn't exist.
Right? The Titanic's not sinking, yo. Get the fuck out of that boat. Right? Like, yo, right? Like that's the mentality and shit. And so like the idea that we're all just these individuals and we're not, you know what I'm saying, like part of this fucking planet and part of our fucking communities and part of our families is really the reason, one of the main reasons why this shit is like liberalism is failing, right? You know what I mean? As a whole, I got a couple more motherfucking ideologies, you know what I mean? And that's and that's really, you know what I'm saying? Like fucking, that's really where the hell the mental is. Like we've taken away the idea of these communities. And as I said earlier, you have to remember that up until like the 1600s, this was a completely fucking ridiculous idea. I'm sorry, gaming. I'm sorry, my brother. Right?
Why don't you come in here, big boy gaming yelling, and make me pay for it? Come here.
Right. Up until the 1600s, this would never been a thing, right? Like, because your community was utmost, right? And like literally you had organization, like everything was like a free association with you. Like, you didn't have to stand here and, you know what I mean, deal with like a federal government. You didn't have to stand here and deal with like a fucking large organization. You had things like churches and things like fucking, you know what I mean, community organizations, and you had like, you know, like guilds or whatever it is that you belong to by free association that gave you support in the times of when things were hard, especially like when it comes, you know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't have enough food for your family. You would take care of each other because the next year you might have more food than your neighbor and he might, you know what I'm saying? You might be taking care of him. And these are things that like bonds that we formed as as human beings, right? And as a community over like fucking eons and a millennia. And over the past 200 or 300 years, we try to just separate this completely from this whole ideology. And we stop being fucking human beings. We strip the humanity out of the human. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like where the fucking mental is and why liberalism, I think, like one of the big reasons on a metaphysical level of why liberalism is motherfucking failed as a whole, as a concept. Because like you cannot replace community and motherfucking family and all these things with shiny plastic shit and macaroni and cheese, right? That's kind of my mental.
All right, I think I got enough of a grasp about the topic now to give I don't know, an opening or a thesis statement, whatever you want to call it. So why has liberalism failed? Ultimately, it has to do, and it comes down to the progressive aspect of liberalism, where we've moved so far away from whether you want to call it a natural structure of society or a natural order of things, or as you say, like the humanity of societies and cultural structures, that inevitably you push it so far that the only result is that society itself is going to collapse, and it's going to be replaced by something that is fundamentally flawed, in my opinion, because it's not natural. It doesn't have anything based in community. It doesn't have anything based in the family unit. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't come naturally to us as human beings, that whether we're talking about the family unit or a larger societal unit, whether it's a township or a city or even a country, this is not the way human beings operate. And yet somehow we're trying to push this theological, intellectual, pie in the sky ideology that just simply doesn't work in reality. I mean, yeah, it might sound great on paper, but you've pushed society literally to a breaking point with the explicit purpose of trying to break society to replace it with something that you deem to be better. That isn't. I mean, it isn't better. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for people. It doesn't work for society. It only ends up doing more harm. It doesn't do anybody any good. And that's why you take it to you take liberalism and progressivism to its extreme. And that's why people think there's like 57,000 different fucking genders. Like, I'm sorry, dude, that's just not reality.
You know, honestly, all this talk about it has actually kind of put my whole life in perspective. And I think it explains a great deal on why my 20s were just so fucked up.
All of us, dude. I'm gonna maintain my central thesis here of I think liberalism fundamentally fails because it has a confused and contradictory, it has multiple different definitions of freedom, and it you can't serve two masters, so to speak. And
That goes back to my entire issue with the whole progressive movement and the redefinition of language. I am still baffled as to why people think a piece of headgear is a lie. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily because of redefinition of language. It's just that like you use the same word for different meanings as a natural thing in the English language because people are dumb. And if you build an ideology that uses that word to communicate ideas, then what's going to happen is you're going to get those confused. And for example, freedom. If if freedom is only the ability to make a snap decision that is right in front of you in the short term, then that's always going to lead to stimmies and OnlyFans and all the shit that we see today because freedom in that sense is going to be like freedom to be a coomer. Whereas if you go for it.
All right. So, like, first off, the Menace Show, welcome, my brother. Like, yo, everybody gets a wrench because I never want no one to be silenced in my bitch, in my fucking chat. That's how the hell we roll out here. Freedom of speech. You know what I mean? It's always important that, you know what I mean? Like, if anybody disagrees with me, they need to be able to fucking stand here and have the chance to say it and speak it. That way I learn, you know what I mean? Because I learn by individuals standing here, you know what I mean, trying to correct me on my mentalities. I think ad hoc should know a little bit about the way I'm thinking about this, right? Because ad hoc.
Oh, I know it very intimately, to be honest.
Right. Ad hoc helped me read some shit that kind of like explains some of this, right? So the mentality of being able to stand here and have the best and your brightest in your nation, right? Which is in your state, right? Which is a completely and utterly false bullshit, complete nonsensical thing that doesn't actually exist, right? But it seemed that way. Being able to be drug out of the community and pushed into colleges, right? And pushed into, you know what I'm saying, giant metropolitan, cosmopolitan fucking cities where we can compete as a nation against other nations to be able to build better things and, you know what I mean, create the best type of stuff. This mentality of doing so has stripped out the communities. It has stripped out your families. It has stripped out your neighborhoods of intelligent individuals who would have made them a whole lot better, right? Where like literally what they're doing is they're just trying to force the common individuals to stand here and, you know what I mean, accept the metropolitans' motherfucking ideology so that they can benefit the metropolitan individuals and don't give anything back to the people who live inside of the communities, right? It's the yeoman's versus the armigers act, if you remember our fucking live stream.
I definitely remember that one, yes.
Right. And this is a good mental. Go ahead.
It's worth noting here that in general, not just liberalism, but if you run on a strictly merit-based system, that actually does have a lot of dysgenic effects. Because if you elevate people's social status based purely on what they're able to do, as far as like you always pool all the talented people in the capital, you're going to have these types of problems. And there's also going to be like knock-on problems from this because like if you didn't have like a strict meritocracy, then you would end up with people who, what you actually end up doing is you have a smart person that is closer to every single problem that is happening, right? Because without a meritocracy, you will have, for example, an Albert Einstein running a post office. And you might say, why the hell are we having Albert Einstein run a post office? But on the other hand, like if there was a problem with that post office, that dude would get it fixed ASAP. as opposed to having the problems first have to not only pop up, but like the ramifications have to get big enough that it gets sent up the command chain, and it has to go, to the centralized decision-making locations, and then those decisions then need to be analyzed by the central authority and sent back out, right? So if you do not have meritocracy, weirdly enough, on like at least a national scale, where it causes like immigration, like travel within the country, if you do not have meritocracy on that scale, it actually improves the robustness of supply chains.
The world doesn't need genius-level ditch diggers, Ed.
Well, Pinoid and TK Mao, you actually brought up two good points that bring me to a conclusion, more specifically analyzing not necessarily liberalism, but more specifically the progressive ideology that it is allowed to take root. When you start questioning society, or you start questioning the morals or the foundations of a society, and it leads you down a path where what has allowed society to prosper and flourish is suddenly considered by academia or those with power, or the in group, or the smart people, the coastal elites, whatever you want to call them, and they start rejecting that idea, and suddenly things that were considered to be moral are considered immoral. It's where the joke that the progressive ideology has now suddenly become regressive, because through the rejection of what has worked through society for hundreds, if not thousands of years, is simply immoral because it's deemed to be immoral because it's the status quo, regardless of how effective it is or how beneficial it is for individuals or society as a whole. That will ultimately lead to the fundamental breakdown of that society, simply because, well, we're rejecting it because it's the status quo.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They're trying to fix it.
So we had
playing Jenga with pillars of society.
We had a good question from the chat, right? From the Menace Show. He said, what about the regulation of hedonism? Well, so here's the mentality, right? And again, we have to get back to the mentality that the idea of a state's a stupid ideology, right? And that you should be governed at, like the level of a fucking community, right? You should be governed at the level of a fucking household. So these type of hedonistic ideologies don't end up forming because of the fact that, you're regulated by the goddamn community. Right? You know what I'm saying? When you don't have the laws and regulations to stand here and allow you to form these fucking hedonistic ideologies, and when you have your community says, we want to be able to have community cohesion, the things that are going to be negative for the community cohesion are going to be things like hedonism. Right. And this is where these type of mentalities really start sorting this shit out on a natural type of level.
Well, that's something important to point out, Pinoid, is that self-regulation, or weeding out what is bad for the community, or what's bad for the family unit, or what's bad for the group as a whole, it does happen naturally, but not to be confused with totalitarianism or authoritarianism, which takes place almost exclusively at the government level.
Okay, I got a real quick example, and this is only possible because I live in an impossibly small town. The other day, I was in the liquor store, and I saw the cashier turn down cold hard cash because the dude was a fucking drunk. He was an alcoholic, and he was killing himself, so he wouldn't sell him alcohol. That is the type of thing that gets socially enforced in a small community.
Well, Jim McIntosh, right? You know what I'm saying? Okay, there's a lot of reasons why, right? And I'm going to bring up a few of them. It's not just, you know what I'm saying, the social ills that you think they are, right? Because I'm going to ask Doku a question here, right? And I want you to answer in within 3 seconds of me answering this question. Can you do that for me, Doku?
I got you, man.
All right, ready? If you have a fucking city that has 100% black population, what color should their mayor be?
Black.
Simple. Now, if you have a city with 100% white population,
white,
what color should their fucking mayor be?
White.
Yo, this is liberals ideology's fucking problem, right? Legitimately, right? This is the problem, because instinctually we know that like Native Americans should be ruled over by Native Americans, and like fucking Mexicans should be ruled over by Mexicans. But when it comes to white people, we go, oh, well, everybody, we should be inclusive and everybody should have a say, right? And that's fucking dumb, right? Like, yo, we as white folks, like, we know that like we probably shouldn't move to Liberia or Sierra Leone, right? It's not because like they're dangerous places. It's because like those are black countries, right? They're not ours. They're not places where we belong, right? And instinctively, we fucking know this, right?
Well, again,
I wouldn't go there to stay, but they'd probably like me to come over as a tourist and give them their money, and then they'd like me to go home at the end of my trip.
Yes.
Well, there's a reason why. Go for it, Doku.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say it's about cultures, customs, and traditions, and even within America, it doesn't matter if you're going to a predominantly black community, predominantly white community, predominantly Asian community, et cetera, et cetera. I could rattle off every freaking ethnicity on the planet. The thing is, people have different backgrounds. They have different upbringings. They come from different places in the world, even though that might be rooted hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. People do group together and have common I want to say themes, and I know that's a terrible way to describe it, but they have commonality between them. And so there's a reason you gravitate, not just because people look like you, but because they come from the same place that you come from. And they, like, even in Africa, you have different tribes that, yeah, everybody might be black, but guess what? The tribe over here is not the same as the tribe over there. They have, again, cultures, customs, and traditions. That is important. White person,
the black people in Africa, they can tell themselves apart by the different shades of black, believe it or not.
Well, and that's the thing. A white person from Boston, that's the thing. A white person coming from a predominantly white neighborhood in Boston is not going to be the same as a white person that comes from a predominantly white neighborhood in the South. Take your pick. It's just not the thing. I mean, shit, we don't even have to go to the South. Look at Boston and New York. It's not the same.
It's worth noting that historically, the only times that a country would accept being required to respect foreign ideologies, cultures, and populations is when they had lost a war.
You're not wrong. That is historically accurate. You're not wrong at all. And such is the mentality of conquest.
Right. So then once you have this mentality, like immediately you go, all right, so it's not a racist thing to stand here and say like, yo, I want my kids to be raised around kids who look like them. That's not a racist thing. Right. It's not a racist thing for any individual to go, I want my kids to look like me. Right. But like liberalism as a whole tells everybody that they shouldn't think this way. And that's fucking wrong. Right. And everybody instinctively fucking knows this. Right.
I am already instinctively revolted by this idea. I do want my kids to look like me because that means they're mine. Otherwise, they're somebody else's, and I ain't raising somebody else's kid.
And one thing that I think that like people kind of discount and don't even think about with this ideology is that like if you make it like normal for you not to have to like have your kid look like you, that demeans the how good of a person it is to actually take care of somebody else's kid. Like that is one of the most selfless things you could ever do as a human being. And acting like that's a normal thing that should be expected from a person is fucking dumb.
Well, also, there's something else important to point out here in terms of modern liberal ideology is they believe that this is exclusively the realm of racial or ethnic homogeny, which is not the case because there are plenty of instances in history where national identity and national homogeny is a much stronger unifying factor than ethnic homogeny is, given the right time and circumstances. I mean, there are certain ethnic groups that will fight for their country because they believe that their country is actually better than their technical country of origin, simply because there's a stronger sense of community based and built around national homogeny rather than ethnic homogeny. We've seen this happen. It's a difficult conversation to go down in the modern era, because we live in such a time where people think you can't. People think that just because you're a different ethnicity but born in the same country, you can't be, the same as somebody simply because their skin color is not the same as you. And they propagate this type of mentality and ideology. It's completely self-destructive.
And since Neffel's not here, I have to add in, there have been occasions where religion was the basis of that unity.
Yeah, good point. I forgot to mention that one, but you're 100% correct on that. It's just something I felt important to point out.
Yeah, ad hoc, go.
Go where?
Right, which brings me to another point, you know what I'm saying, is the fact that liberalism thought it could replace religion, right, with nothing.
I thought that was more the atheist domain and what they were trying to do. They were trying to get rid of all religion in this country.
Well, I know Pinoid has heard me say this before, but I'll just say it again for the chat and everybody listening. Under a Marxist ideology, there is no room for God, only the state. The state is the only authority that is allowed.
Boo!
It's inherent. It's inherent and critical to that particular mindset and ideology.
Yeah, because it's purely materialistic. Like, yeah.
Well, like, let me say this. Let me say this, Doku. All right. The idea that the church was an authority at any given point is fucking retarded. All right. Like, the church is not a seat of power. It's a pool of power. Right. The church has never been a government. All right. Because the church has never had troops or the monopoly on violence. Governments have the monopoly on violence. Like, they're different.
I don't know, Tom.
By definition.
Crusades might differ.
Who? What?
I think crusades might beg to differ.
Crusades bought. Like, they literally bought people to fucking stand here and like fucking go to war for them, right? But like, legitimately, they had no troops of their own.
Well, and that's the thing. When the church, and this is why I want to explicitly make a distinction between church and religion. When the church acts as a governing body, which it did in the Middle Ages, it's not just the church.
It never did. It
was a political. No, the church was political power in the Middle Ages, even if it was essentially operating as a manipulator. But the church was technically a political power.
It was never a fucking government.
It wasn't a government, but it was a political power.
No, it wasn't.
It is a government in exactly one place, and that is Vatican City.
Yeah, that's the only place and the Vatican has Swiss guards, and they're bodyguards. They're not fucking troops. It's a whole different animal.
What I'm trying to say is the church was a political power because it had influence over government. It wasn't a direct political power in the sense that it was acting as a governing body, but it did have political influence. So when that happens, you're not talking about religion at that point in time. You are talking a distinctive political power, the same way that you could argue right now Amazon or any other.
It's more okay. All right. So here's the thing: like, they force kings to adhere to customs of the individual people who live inside of a fucking country that adhere to the customs of that church. Right. For instance, they tell a king, "Look, we will recognize your power as long as you uphold the fucking morals of our fucking church, right? And the values of our church, right? Like, so we'll stand here and say, like, yeah, like that's the rightful king of fucking France or whatever it is. But the moment the king of France stands here and starts fucking acting like a fucking retard and trying to divorce his fucking broads and cut bitches' heads off and fucking steal other individuals' wives, that's a different animal altogether, right?
Well, and that's the reason I want to say that the church at the time that I'm talking about is a political power, but they're not a government. I mean,
No,
it's
but like
a nitpick distinction, but it's important.
Their power came from the motherfucking fact that like they had to uphold the morals of the church. Like, it was that simple. Like, you can't have a public figure just flaunting the fact that like they're going to disrespect what God says and have people still be part of the church.
Right. It's worth noting that like sorry about that, Doku. I'll let you.
How far? I'll be real with you, son. Like, I respect their puffy pants, son. Legit. I want a pair. I want a scarred outfit. Like, I'll keep it a buck. I want one.
Well, let's also be clear that that's the dress uniform. If they're caught fighting in that, then that means they need to retreat and break out the actual boys in the barracks.
Well, let me say this, right? Legit. I get one of them. I'm doing the too legit to quit dance. I'll be real. No, too legit to quit.
Yeah, but it's worth noting that like we have lived in an era that is unique because the state has shifted the premise of the legitimacy of its power, right? Because historically, every single time somebody ran the state, they did it because they're like, I'm God's guy. Like, I'm the dude. I am God's guy because I am able to command the most men and bring the most troops to bear. So, I'm God's guy is basically the justification that every single ruler is given. And if you can't beat him in a fight, you can't, like, what the fuck's your argument gonna be? Especially if you're fighting with, like, swords. Then, like, somebody who's got, like, 20 dudes is going to be able to say whatever he wants. And I'll let you go in a minute here, Pino. But what's happened is that, like, at some point in time there, the church became a thing, and they have their own version of God. They've got their teachings, which usually churches cater to the population and give the population whatever it wants. And so what happens is these churches did what Tom Pino was saying, and they acted as an intermediary for recognition of rightful authority. However, what happened in America specifically, and then subsequently across the rest of the Western world after a bunch of revolutions, is that there was a government established by whatever people constitutionally or via republic or whatever, and they moved it to saying that God says that the people's voice is God's voice. And that is therefore the justification to moving the goalpost to democracy, which is much different than ruling by and for the people, even if that's ostensibly what happens. Because we've seen what happens when the government derives its authority from the people themselves, supposedly, as opposed to deriving their power from God.
Look, let me say I love what you just said. Right, that was beautifully put. 100. That was gorgeous, son. I just want to tell you that, right? Okay, so let me take you back to Persia real quick, right? To give you an example of like some shit that you would accept in your brain, all right? Because like I'm trying to deprogram fucking a bunch of people who have been taught by Protestants, right? Now this is the problem. Is like you've all had a Protestant upbringing, right? Yeah, Protestants are cool, but like they're liars, all right? They're like Jews; they lie a lot. So, okay, Cyrus the Great. The reason why Cyrus the Great was Cyrus the Great, okay, is because of the fact that he took over for a dude who lost basically the will of the people. And he lost the will of the people through many ways. One was he squandered a bunch of riches. The second one is he turned into kind of like a Nero character, where like, or not Nero, I forget who the last emperor of fucking Western Roman Empire was. But you know, I mean, I'll fucking stand here and say what he did. He hid out, you know what I'm saying, when like bad times came. And he hid out even when good times came. And he decided that there was traditions that the people had that he didn't want to participate in. Like there was a tradition every year during the harvest where this individual would stand here, or the king would come out and clasp the hand of the statue in, I think, Babylon or one of these fucking cities or whatever, right? And in doing so, he showed himself as having reverence. You know what I'm saying? Where like fucking he go, all right, I have reverence for the gods and the gods have reverence for me, right? And the people recognize this, right? And this mentality of, you know what I mean, like doing this basic act and just showing reverence. You're not just showing reverence to the God, you're showing reverence to the people who believe in that God, right? And in behaving in the manner in which is respected inside of the church of the people that you're ruling over allows you to show respect for the people you're ruling over, right? Like, yo, this, you know what I'm saying, is some basic shit. But the problem is that you've been taught by these fucking Protestants, all right, who legitimately hated the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church stood up against the fucking government trying to take over the place of the fucking church and the community and your family. That's the difference. All right. And that's why fucking Protestants hate the fucking church. And that's why you have all these ideologies about the Catholic Church and the Vatican and all these secrets and shit. Right. And there's a reason why, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of these fucking like texts and tomes are fucking kept by the Catholic Church. It's because literally they're standing here protecting the history of your people. And they're not just going to let any fucking retard walk in there and start thumbing the pages with their Cheeto thumbs and shit, right? Because like, yo, it's not the proper way to be handling business because these texts have been lost once before. A lot of them got lost at the Library of Alexandria when it burned down during the fucking wars and shit. This is an important mentality to remember. And these individuals are protecting your heritage as they've always done. Right. And this is something that nobody talks about. Nobody has any idea about this. They've always protected you and your family. Right. They've stood here and stood for you and your family because doing so stands for them. Right. And this is the mentality that a lot of motherfuckers miss.
There is something to be noted in the fact that the first Protestant church was the Anglican Church. Right. Yep. And that was, I believe, started with the head of the state as the leader of the church. Like, I believe it's Queen Elizabeth who's the leader of that church, right?
Yeah. Not only that, they stood here and told the Catholic Church, the British government, not the people, the government, the king of fucking Great Britain, sat here and literally raided the motherfucking Catholic Church and its coffers and stole money from the communities that were motherfucking using this fucking grain and wheat and shit of this nature to fucking feed themselves in wintertime. This is what governments do. And this is why the fucking Catholic Church ended up becoming intertwined with all this shit, because they didn't have a choice, because all over Europe, these kings started fucking trying to fucking stand here and do this to the fucking church. So they went along to get along to continue to have their church exist. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's also a reason that we have the separation of church and state is one of the fundamental cornerstones of our society that we have here in the United States, is because when you end up with a society where, in this example, what we're talking about right now, when you have the church, which is essentially looking out for the well-being of the people, with some examples you could say not so much, because yeah, of course, human beings are easily corruptible, and yes, you're going to end up with corrupt people. It's going to happen. we could bring up examples of that, but it's not the primary example of, every small monastery in the countryside anywhere. But when you have a structure where you have fiefdoms, serfdoms, kingdoms, what's the primary challenge to their power? Well, it's the church. So they want to subjugate the church. Of course they want to, because that's literally the greatest threat to their power.
Okay, so it's worth noting that one, the government has the right to pull a church's tax exempt status in the United States, and two, the government also has the right to pull accreditation from like these schools where all these preachers are trained.
No, that's true. I'm not saying it isn't. What I'm saying is, on a societal standpoint, when it comes down to the authority of the state, there's only two large challenges to that authority. One would be the church, and the other is your community.
Oh yeah. I'm just saying, like, the separation of church and state nonsense only seems to cut one way. It only prevents the church from interfering with the government the way things have been going on right now, and it never prevents them from interfering with them.
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. All right, no, that's a fair point.
All right, so here's this mentality. Like, understand, like, I'm not standing here trying to like push Catholicism on motherfuckers or goddamn fucking Christianity, right? What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stand here and tell you, like, yo, look, whatever your community chooses, you know what I'm saying, as the center of it, as your value set, whatever it is, right? That's what it should be, right? And I think that individuals have the right in their own communities to sit here and dictate how they live and what rights individuals and what freedoms they should have, what laws you should have. And this mental, to me, you know what I mean, has been at kind of like the core of my message, kind of like forever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm saying, like, I'm an Appalachian, you know what I'm saying? Like, I like my community. I'm anti-fucking police. I'm anti-fucking state. I'm anti-laws. I'm anti-government, right? And it's not because of the fact that, like, you know, I'm some fucking like crazy right-wing fucking gun nut person. It's because of the fact that I would much rather deal with criminals in my community than deal with a government that has the ability to conduct warfare upon me, right? Because it's not a fair fight. With a criminal, I can even the fucking odds. I got buddies. We can fucking handle this. That's my fucking issue and shit at the end of the day. And so this mentality of liberalism, excuse me, it makes
it is mutual enslavement.
Yes. Right. And it makes human beings into this, how do I put this, man? It tries
mere animals.
Yeah. I want to make the best human animal, right? In the end of the day. Right.
I wouldn't even say animals. I think that's being a little too nice. I would say it turns them into worker drones, turns them into ants.
Well, I mean, ants is one. It turns them into cogs in the machine, right? And that's not what a fucking human being is, right? A human being is an animal, right? Of like any other animal. You know what I'm saying? Like, a buffalo inside of a fucking herd is not a cog in a machine, right? He's part of a herd, right? It's a different thing. Like, it's a mutually beneficial motherfucking shit. You're not just benefiting somebody else with your fucking, you know what I mean, with, you know, you eating grass and shitting, right? You're benefiting the earth and you're benefiting yourself, right? It's helpful and it helps you, right? Our system doesn't motherfucking. Who am I missing as a wrench, man? Legit, I'm fucking. Fishbone, you just remake his shit. The fuck is going on, right? Yo, he's had a wrench forever. Like, yo, legit. Like, he's like, yo, this movie's been on my channel for like fucking, like, you know, 2-3 years, some shit, right? But that's kind of the mentality, right? So, like, liberalism has turned the human being into a commoditized motherfucking like machine, and I think that's another reason why it's failing, because like it's not beneficial to average human beings anymore.
Well, I know I've brought this up on your stream at least once before. I don't need some 22-year-old fresh out of college with some garbage ass degree, $60,000 in debt, $60,000 plus, I should say, living in downtown Chicago telling me I'm not allowed to own a gun when I don't even live in the same state. I live in the freaking mountains in either Tennessee or Virginia or West Virginia. Do you have black bears in your backyard, sir? Do you not? If the answer is no, why the hell are you telling me what I should be doing, what I'm allowed to own, when it doesn't affect you, period, at all in any way, shape, or form? I'm not even in the same fucking state, but you want to dictate to me what I'm allowed to do?
Yeah, man, she'd probably just call animal control and run down to the next neighborhood.
It's also worth noting that like some of these ideologies formed in times and eras that are extremely maladaptive to America today. Free trade, like Adam Smith was an Irishman right after England had just stomped a mud hole in his country, which prior to that had primarily been a raiding nation. So, like, they don't have a huge number of natural resources, so they can't make a lot of stuff. So if they don't have the ability to trade with people, they're not going to be able to make anything or have anything. Whereas America is a continent. There's no reason we need to trade with anyone.
Valid point. It has to do with, and this is what drives me nuts. I'm going to do my best to not go on a rant. When I see a lot of these coastal elites, and I live outside of DC, and I see a lot of these coastal elites talk. Have you ever been to the shooting range? Do you know how a firearm works? Do you know the different calibers of firearm? Do you know the difference between millimeter and caliber? Have you ever been hunting? Have you ever been fishing? Have you ever been outside of DC? Have you ever been outside of the coastal elite? Are you one of these, oh, it's just flyover country? Do you know how to farm? What's the one asshole? Bloomberg, trying to say like, oh, I can teach you how to farm. You just poke a hole in the ground and put a seed in there and water it, and it grows.
What?
He said this.
I grew up on a family farm. That is not it at all. Jesus.
TK, Mal. TK, my nigga.
What up?
Yo, the LA River.
No, we don't. No, go for it.
That's the thing, though. Michael Bloomberg, during his presidential campaign, there was a video that surfaced where he's saying, I can teach anybody how to farm. You poke a hole in the ground and you put a seed in it and you cover it up with some dirt and you pour water on it and the plant grows and then you harvest the fruit or the whatever it's like. No, that's not how it works at all.
Well, like this is something that is very, very historically precedented. Like, remember that Mao genocided the sparrows because they were eating the grain that they were planting. Except, you know what happened because they killed all the birds?
Locusts. Locusts as far as the eye can see.
Well, because it turns out that plants are critical to an ecology to eat bugs. Like, it's the same reason I do not ever kill a spider if I don't have to. Because I want it eating the rest of the fucking bugs.
Oh, that's the thing. These people don't even realize, like, there's a reason we let fields go fallow. There's a reason that we do crop rotation. It's not that long ago that we had the Dust Bowl.
No, man. No. They're trying to create food shortages, Doku. All right, that's what they're doing, man. They're trying to create.
I know, man. I know, but I'm trying to point out that a lot of people will sit there and listen to people like Michael Bloomberg and just go, "Oh yeah, you just plant a seed in the ground and pour some water on it. It'll be fine."
They want to starve 80% of people, Doku. All right, that's what fucking Ice Age Farmer told me. All right, like, they want to starve 80% of the fucking population. You didn't read the Georgia Guidestones, Doku? Like.
I'm already aware that there's quite literally a paper that was written by people who contribute to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
I'm being sarcastic, nigga. All right.
Oh no, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. There's people that have actually written for them that have flat out say they want population control.
They're not doing this. They're not trying to starve people. All right, legit.
Like, I don't think they're trying to intentionally starve people, but I do think they are trying to, how should I say, I want to be very concise about what I'm about to say.
Well, here's the word of mouth from the actual farmers in my family. They do pay farmers to let fields lie fallow, because the truth is that we could literally feed this entire nation and export to the rest of the world if we planted every single field out there.
Well, this is why sorry, real quick, DK. This is the reason I want to say I want to be very concise about what I'm going to say. It's not that they want to depopulate the globe. It's that they know by controlling the food supply, it expands their power.
Okay, so you got to understand that most of this, like, eat the bug, eat the soy, this type of thing, this is an ideology that comes about because you have, like, this manufacturing view of the food chain, where you're like, yeah, food is made in the food factory, and then it is put on the shelves after it is moved there from the food factory. Like, so once you've got that...
What retardation is this? What am I listening to?
Yeah, this is what people think.
This does not make any sense.
I met a person in Texas who did not know that, like... I met a person in Texas who thought that they made the meat in the back of the store.
What?
Oh, no.
Well, these are people who have never, like, seen the meat that hasn't been, like, cut into a specific... Like, they haven't even seen the meat that hasn't been specifically cut into a steak. They
haven't even seen the live cow?
No, like, these people have not...
Yo, TK, man. Yo, look, man, we gotta figure out how to pay for DNA tests, bro. The government don't got no money, man.
That's
here's an idea what we can do to pay for DNA tests. Let's not subsidize abortions.
Anybody that didn't see my video today, legit, home, like, I saw the black chick literally turn into fucking Bill Crystal. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my whole life.
And then she was AOC again in 2 seconds.
Yeah, you should pay for my fucking tampons, but, like, yo, your goddamn fucking DNA tests are too expensive, right?
I don't know.
I don't know why she. Yeah, I don't know why she wants government issue tampons, because government issue anything is always trash.
Why? Why does Velveeta exist?
Yo, what would happen? If fucking DNA tests cost $5,000?
Well, like,
the rich will pay for it.
Here's the thing, like, the reason why Germany and all these other countries get good prices on drugs is because they say to these drug companies, you don't get a sell here unless you give us this price. And because of that, drug companies will sell, like, a lot of generic medications at a loss, just because it means that they can then sell their expensive medications into there, right? Which means that, like, if we had some kind of brain on our shoulders, we could just do the same thing, except for DNA tests. Like, we could go the whole fucking nine if you want, and just straight up hire a bunch of biologists, microbiologists, or whoever to run these stations. And, like, the thing is, if you just make it like an automatic thing, what we should do is we should bomb Berlin, right? It's been a while since we've done it. Like, yo, we have the military ability to make these motherfuckers pay. Like, why don't we just make them pay for our prescriptions? Like, charge them 4 times what it costs, and then we can get them for free here. No, Tom. You got the wrong ideology with that. You see, we need to bomb Berlin because breaking their windows and bombing their city makes their GDP go up, because then they have to rebuild the city.
Don't get me started on the broken window fallacy, damn it.
Nice.
Right, we should bomb Berlin first, and then Paris. Right, and then just start working our way around Europe. Right, just start.
We don't have to bother bombing France because France is bombing itself.
Yo, look, all right. Here's what I'm saying. Can we, like, make bombing white people great again? You know what I mean? That's just kind of my mentality. Right? I feel like these assholes need a reason to build a fucking military and stop bothering us. Like maybe if we showed them that we're not going to help them any, maybe if we hurt them, then like they'll stop, you know what I mean, begging us for fucking free shit constantly and our fucking protection and our help.
I mean, Pino, you might have a point there if bombing the major European cities weren't already majority not white. Because, you know,
I feel like
migration and shit.
We're doing them a favor as well. Right? I mean, like if it's not filled with our people anymore, like why the fuck do we care about whether or not they're around? Like that's kind of I don't know, whatever, right? Fuck Paris. Anyway, right. So where the fuck were we? Liberalism is failing. Oh yeah, like liberalism is failing as a whole because of like rampant consumerism replacing, you know what I'm saying? Like fucking your values as a human being. Right? Like yo, there's nothing in consumerism that will replace you being a person and you having values and by the way, TK, like you talk about like we have respect for ourselves and we capitalize on name. And you are the only nigga in this chat without a capital in their first fucking name, man.
Fuck, dude. I didn't even realize that.
Well,
right. I just want to put that out there. Right. So I mean, you cannot stand here. How about liberalism has fucking failed? Yo, it has, right? But we're trying to explain why, right? And like have like some actual reasons and get some shit behind it so that we can, you know what I mean, kind of have some mentality about what we're going to do next. Right? Like, I think that's important that like we come up with not just, you know, we not just say that things happened, right? Like we also go like, yo, here's the solution to look at this motherfucker.
Criticism is easy.
First 3 letters. I capitalized my whole name.
He's going whole hog. He wants to beat us now. He's not going to beat Pinoid though. That's all caps there. Yeah, Pinoid, why are you yelling in your name?
I type in caps because like I live in fucking, you know what I mean? I live in capital letters and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Caps lock is cruise control for cool.
Even with cruise control, you still need to steer.
Right. Like I'm kind of upset. I'm gonna have to get a new laptop because my S key broke and it won't go back on.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that problem with one of my older computers at some point. Eventually I just need to pull the fucking hard drive and replace the whole thing anyway.
That's what
good luck getting a new a new laptop these days.
No, I mean at this point I just need to fucking strip it out and put in new parts.
Yo, cow farts. Tom P lives out loud. Yo, I live at 11, nigga, all the time. Right. So TK, my brother, like, can you come up with any more reasons why liberalism has failed?
The way we do charity is worse than communist China.
Yo, you're not wrong. Yo,
okay, so like
I have to cork an eyebrow at this, but yes, please elaborate.
Okay, so basic concept here is the way we do charity is we give people who are poor money to buy things that they need, ignoring the fact that people are typically poor for a reason. The way that the Chinese do charity is that they give out business loans for things that might sound insane, but like if it works out, if it doesn't, like it's charity anyway. They don't really care if they get paid back.
Yo, I missed the S in the liberalism. Like, yo, how the fuck you're not gonna tell me I missed the S? I wasn't even looking at it. It was not even like I fucking like I misspelled it. Like I mistyped it, and like I wasn't even looking at it. I was like, yeah, there's an M there. Like, so why didn't y'all fucking tell me?
It looks. I don't know. I didn't see it until just now. It's like you had to draw attention to it.
Yeah, fucking shit, man. Listen, like y'all need to fucking let me know these things. All right, yeah, but like I was thinking about that with China too, right? Did you notice that like they're not bailing out? You know what I'm saying? Fucking Evergreen or whatever the fuck it is, Evergrande.
Yeah, their housing prices just dropped 62%, and they're just letting them drop.
This gonna be good. I wonder if there's gonna be a revolution because all their savings are tied up in that one property.
70 to 80% of personal wealth in China is tied up in real estate.
Well, let me say this. Let me say this, right? I think this is important to understand. Your house isn't a fucking savings account.
Agreed. Like I'm not like you're just saying that 70 to 80% of capital in China is allocated extremely dumbly. That doesn't change the fact that 70 to 80% of the capital in China is allocated that way.
I mean, that's not really the problem, right? Like, the problem is like motherfuckers think that your house should be a savings account and something that you can draw off for like fucking investments and, you know what I mean, like fucking things that, you know, you want to use later on. Your house isn't a it's not an asset, it's a house. It's some place where you live and you keep your shit and your family grows in. When did we go from like a house being a house and a home and going into it being, this is an investment for me? When did that happen?
That actually happened back during the housing market, which I think was somewhere between the 60s and the 80s.
All right. So, like, this is part of a long line of, like, financialization of the economy. And I believe Doku probably can talk on this a little bit better than I can, but the basic concept is that once we went to, like, a dual fiat and credit-based economy, which is money is either issued by the government or lent out by banks out of nothing. That gave an incentive for banks to want to write down literally everything that they could as an asset on their books so they could make loans against it so they can make money on those loans.
Partially. This is kind of a larger, slightly more complicated issue than a lot of people realize it actually is. It started in the late 1800s. It really became an issue in the late 1920s, going into the 1930s. It solidified in the 1950s, 1960s. It became a big issue in the 80s, and then it popped in the late 1990s and then the early 2000s. But what you're touching on is that it's essentially the classification as anything that can be considered an asset by a bank. If the bank can loan you money, I'll boil it down to the simplest possible way I can. If you don't own it, you don't own it. The bank does. And what a bank does with assets is they take that asset on loan, they make money off of you as the person who they loan the money to that you have to pay back at interest, and then they'll take that asset and they'll make loans against it. They use it as something they can trade against. They use that to make more money. It is essentially there's no real good word for it. Essentially everything that you own, you don't actually own, and somebody can turn around and sell assets against it. And if that bet goes belly up, well, guess what? The bank is not going to be the one that's paying the money for it. They're not going to be the one sucking up the loss. It's going to be you sucking up the loss. And this has become an issue because people don't own shit anymore. They take out loans for it. They try to afford things that they can't afford. It doesn't matter if it's a house. It doesn't matter if it's a car. It doesn't matter if it's you using a credit card to buy groceries. This has become an issue in our modern day society where people live outside of their means, and they don't budget. Like, let's be blunt. People are financially illiterate. People are financially illiterate. They just think because, I have $2,000-$3,000 line of credit per month, I can just buy it now and pay it back later. And they just get stuck into the cycle of, I can only afford a $300,000 house, but because I have a line of credit, I can buy a $400,000 house, and I can buy a $30,000 car instead of a $20,000 car, and I can still pay this shit off. Guess what? You don't own any of that shit. Oh, by the way, a lot of these assets, especially the hard tangible assets like cars, houses, things that can be repoed, things that can be foreclosed on, even your stocks that you own. If you owe the bank money, guess what? You're gonna have to sell your fucking stocks. That's in the fucking contract. Go read the fine print. You don't own that shit. this is a big problem, and it's because people, again, are financially illiterate. They're ignorant as to what they're actually doing, and that doesn't even get into the aspect of how much money we can simply just print just to cover, if you're one of the in crowd, you're the $100 cigar club, your ass is going to get bailed out. You'll be fine, but who do you think's going to get screwed over? It's going to be you, the people not part of the big club that you're not in.
Oh, this explains why it's so foreign sounding to me. I don't take things more than my means. Like I make I could pay that out if I wanted to.
I got debts and shit, right? Like I got debts for my cars and whatnot, right? So I understand, like when I buy a car, that it's going to depreciate in value, right? Because it's not an asset, it's a tool, right? And with your house, it should be the same motherfucking way, right? Like your house should not appreciate in value because like the foundation isn't getting any newer. The bricks aren't getting any newer. The drywall's not getting any newer. The electric's not getting any newer. Plumbing, fucking any of these things, roof, right? None of this, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's not an investment. It's a depreciating asset.
Yeah, it's not an investment. It's a depreciating asset. It's like, because it's going to cost you, like, if you don't upkeep after it, it's going to end up, you know what I'm saying? And not only that, with the fact that like real estate taxes, you're going to end up owing money for it long run. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like it's going to cost you money to have this. It's not a fucking investment. Like, I don't know who the fuck ever told these people that your house is supposed to be an investment. It's not. Now, it is a...
I would say it's an investment, but not in the way we're thinking. Like, it's an investment into the basic need of shelter. It's not something you're supposed to be loaning money against.
Well, it's an asset, but it's not an appreciating. It's not an appreciating asset. It's just an asset. The land is an asset.
Is your car an investment?
It was, and now I own it because I paid it off.
No, that's not an investment. That's not how that works, right? It's not an investment. It's, you know what I'm saying, a tool or an asset to you, right? Like you own it. Right?
Well, I own it, but
I make more money.
At the time, it was an investment for me because I needed transportation to actually get to the job so that I could make money to pay off that debt and eventually make money to have to pay for other things.
No, but that's a tool though. That's an asset. It's not an investment. An investment is supposed to appreciate.
I think this is where we're getting into the whole confusion of.
Think about it this way: if you have property taxes on your house, right? Legitimately, the amount of money every year that your house goes up in value is going to cost in the fucking it's going to cost that in property taxes. That's the mentality. Like, why would you consider it an investment? Like, you're losing money on it. Like, a long run, you're going to lose money on this house, right?
That actually makes sense.
Right. And then on top of that, like, here's the thing, like, let's say you get a fucking loan for $200,000, right? At compound motherfucking annual interest annual compound interest at motherfucking like 2 or 3 or 5%, whatever it is, you're going to get it because whatever your credit is, right? You know what I'm saying? Long run, over 30 years, you're not going to pay 200 grand. You're going to pay 450 or 5, right? So there's no point where you're going to sell that fucking house for 500,000. Plus, on top of that, over those 30 years, you've also paid another 30 grand in motherfucking taxes and shit on that motherfucker, right? At $1,000 a year. Or if you're like us out here, $4,000 a goddamn year in fucking property taxes, right? Like, you literally are losing money on that, right?
And then maintenance cost on top of it as well.
Yeah. And then on top of that, maintenance and all the bullshit that goes with it.
Jesus, I feel like I'm never going to get out of this apartment the way y'all are talking.
Well, no. But I'm saying, like, your house is a place to live. It's not an investment.
Yeah, it's only been treated like that because the price, like, people are dumb and people always, like, the reason momentum investing can work. And I can probably feel, I saw Doku just cringed there for a second, muted himself. So I'll definitely let him correct me when I'm saying something that is probably kind of wrong here. But like, there are methods of momentum investing that work because people are dumb. And as soon as the price of something goes up, they pile in and they buy it because they think it's going to keep going up. When, you know, if you look at actual reality, most of the time, if the price move has already gone up, that makes it less likely to keep going up, not the other way around. But so you have this happen for a long enough period of time, and like, let's be real here, the boomers have never lived in a time except for 2008 where the value of houses did not go up. They have never lived in a time when more education and more degrees did not get you more money in the labor force. These are things that just that's how it worked for them, and it worked for them because they got in at the base level of the pyramid scheme.
Well, let's also say this, right? Let's also say this, right? Because this kind of ties in the ideology of liberalism, right? So liberalism came around with the idea of statism, right? And so originally when, like, say, places like Florence or Milan or whatever it was, right, and Rome that stood here, not Rome the fucking place, but Rome the city, these places that stood here and had what is it, fucking Napoli, yeah, fucking something like that, right? Oh,
Monopoly.
Naples, right? in Italian it's Napoli, right? Napoli, yeah, Napoli, something like that. Anyway, right? So fucking when you stood here and you had these individuals inside of these cities who were running them, literally they looked at it as a privilege for you to be able to live there. And so therefore they had the ability to tax you as an individual household. And that was the first time that that's ever happened, like ever. That had never happened before. In the history of mankind, nobody, no king anywhere had ever demanded individual taxes from fucking families, right? And so this mentality was part of fucking liberalism. It was the cost of you being part of society and the government guaranteeing your fucking rights as an individual to be able to stand here and conduct business. And this mental was passed down through, it went from Italy to fucking France to fucking goddamn fucking England and shit and London. And then it came to the Americas and also went to Germany and shit as well. And this mental of things like property taxes being paid to a state to be part of the society and to be fucking, to stand here and like enjoy in the society's goods, enjoy, the state's goods, right? It's what it was, the state's goods, the commons of the state, paying for those as an individual family and somebody having the right to be able to take wages or take money off of you as a property owner. Right. Even though, like, you know what I'm saying, you might not make any money off of that fucking property and shit. That had never happened before. Right. And this is another reason why liberalism is failing as a whole, is because of the fact that, like, individuals are standing here going like, yo, why is it that I'm paying this money to a centralized fucking government, especially like here in the States, that, like even in your state where you're paying these fucking taxes to, and they're going like, why am I paying this? Like, I'm not fucking using the goddamn services that this is being used for. You know what I mean? Like, yo, my kid, I don't have any kids, so I'm not educating them, not me, but like other motherfuckers think this way. Right. And this is the mental that individuals are having as far as shit's really concerned. And should they have this power to be able to take away my home for money, to destroy my family because I don't have any fucking money, right? Because I didn't decide to earn any fucking dollars inside of your system. I don't have any fucking choice about any of this shit. And this is, I think, another reason why a lot of this is failing. When I'm standing here and you're standing here and you're going like, yo, I don't want to be part of this system. I just want to live and eat and chill. Right. And intergenerationally, like, yo, we're not passing down houses anymore to kids. We're not sitting here fucking like building this intergenerational wealth, because motherfuckers look at, like fucking rich individuals and go, man, look, I don't want to stand here and have, my kids turn out to be spoiled fucking brats who sit here and do drugs and have little dogs inside of their purses and shit. But the reality is like, if you hand your child, right? Like, if you hand your child a motherfucking house, and your child has children, like you're not just passing it to your child, you're passing it to your grandchildren. Right. And you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, you're maintaining your family and your heritage and who you are as a person and who you are as a family and maintaining your culture. But motherfuckers, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, this is instinctually knowledge of individuals, but it's kind of been destroyed by the liberal ideology and these boomers who decided like to stand here and withhold all of their motherfucking, you know what I mean, their wealth to themselves and destroy the country on the way the fuck out.
Well, Peter, let's be honest about this one, because I don't know if this should be classified as liberal ideology, but I think it's more progressive ideology where capitalism and what do I want to say here? Not just capitalism, but opportunism. It doesn't even have to be capitalism, but opportunism. If you have a resource available to you, don't just let it sit there and do nothing and just collect dust. Do something with it. There's a lot of, I'll just say it this way. There are a lot of people out here who just think capitalism, opportunism, doing business ventures, taking a risk is such a bad, evil, horrible thing. Not a single one of these fucking idiots will go out there and look at the price of land in Oregon, areas of California, areas in Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, and instead of buying some ridiculous fucking house that they don't need, that they can't afford, buy a couple acres of land that has trees, wood on it, that are allowed to be logged, and sell the rights to cut down those trees. Look at the fucking price of timber. You can buy land. I've done this myself. If you have enough money, you can buy land, pay for the land, and still make a profit simply by selling the fucking lumber from the trees that are already on the fucking land. And you can build your own damn house on that land that you already own. But no one thinks about that shit.
I know a guy who all he does is he goes and looks for animals that are good for hunting, like big bucks, this type of thing. And then what he does is he finds like land that's for sale that happens to have a lot of good game on it. He buys that land, he like builds a basic bitch access road, and then he leases it out to hunters.
Yeah, a deer lease. A deer lease.
Exorbitant prices. Just because like he put in a bunch of effort to find where the livestock is, and most of the time people don't know what they're sitting on because, like, let's be real, not a huge number of people hunt.
Oh, that's the thing. People don't realize if you have old growth forest, especially if it's like redwood or oak, if you have water rights, if you have a decent pond that has a decent fish population there, you can build a small cabin, you can rent those out. I mean, there's all types of things you can do if you can just buy the land. And when you look at a lot of these properties, the land isn't nearly as expensive as you think it might be. People think it costs like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. No, it's like $20,000, $30,000, $50,000.
And I say, like, everyone here hunts. So, like, yo, those properties, like, I see them, like, we have them on landwatch.com. We fucking stand here, like, those motherfuckers get snatched up immediately. Like, immediately.
Yeah, it depends on your neck of the woods, because, like, out here, the game is really, really seasonal, so you need to know, like, where to look for what animals and who to market to. It's a little bit different since we have, like, a bunch of different game seasons.
Well, we do too, but, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you have a basic fur taker's license, you're able to do whatever the fuck, you know what I'm saying? Like, you fucking, you know what I mean? You can hunt, you know what I mean? And so, like, everybody hunts all the goddamn time. Like, anytime you drive down the road, there's always trucks parked off in the goddamn brush, in the fucking bush and shit, and motherfuckers just walk in and go hard. Like, on the first day of buck, we have off school and off work the first day of buck every year. That's religious. Right. And everybody observes it. And, like, the first, like, legitimately, you can't even go hunting on the first day of buck because, like, if you don't have a spot saved, if you don't have family land, something like that, you're not going to be able to fucking find a place.
And you can make quite a bit of money, like, stocking a pond and renting out rights to that too.
Well, that's the other thing a lot of people don't realize. If you know where to look, again, especially if you're looking at areas like West Virginia, Southern Virginia, Tennessee, and you find a decent property and you can snatch it up quick enough, you could sell the wood on that property and pretty much build your house for free and probably actually make a profit from selling the excess wood because you're not going to use all of it. You could literally have a nice 2-3 bedroom house, a well dug, a paved driveway, just from the look at the cost of lumber right now, just from the cost of the wood that you can get out of a 2.5 3.5 acre property that's going to cost you about $30,000-$40,000. There you go. Not only do you have your house and your well dug, you're making probably another 10-15K on top of it just from the cost of selling the wood.
Shit, maybe I need to think about that once I get my new job.
Well, I don't think you're not going to make that much money off the timber in the end of the day. Like it's not.
In certain,
not that much fucking money.
Dude, in certain areas, yeah, it will. If you know the right type of trees,
especially not around here.
Well, avoid ash. If you have ash trees, you're not making squat. But if you have redwood, oak, or decent pine, yeah, you can find properties like that where you can make a pretty decent amount of money.
Well, it's worth noting that.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Right now, in the lumber industry, the people who are making bank are not the loggers, are not the timber suppliers. It's like the actual sawmills, because that's the bottleneck.
Yeah, but we have a lot of local sawmills around here as well. You know what I mean? Like we have fucking Amish guys that just do it in their backyard and shit, or like Mennonites, or you know what I mean, fucking just hillbillies with a fucking sawmill in their backyard, just cutting up fucking lumber all day long. Right. But yeah, like, yo, legit, we're like, fucking, you're not going to make that much motherfucking money off of the goddamn timber off fucking 2 acres. Like, you're not. Especially in anywhere east of the Mississippi, because it's all been logged at least once. Minimum, usually twice or 3 times. So it's all fucking, like, basically new growth.
Well, that's why I say you gotta cherry pick your properties, but there's still a few floating around in Virginia and Tennessee.
I wouldn't log old growth if I had it, just myself.
I'm fair.
Yeah. But you know, I mean, that's kind of the mentality. But like, so I mean, but the whole purpose of this conversation to begin with, because like, you know, it is what it is the fact that like legitimately boomers should have left all this fucking wealth to their kids. Right. Like, you know, all these houses that they bought, all the places that they had, it should have went to their fucking kids. And it didn't. It's now on a reverse mortgage, allowing them to live the rest of their lives because their 401k, they notice only lasted like a year and a half, 2 years once they fucking actually retired. That's the fucking issue in the end of the day.
And I don't know, man. I feel like a bigger issue is that they actually sold out the profitability of the country to essentially large corporations that are just going to take the business overseas and just sell shit back to you that much cheaper, but they're not bringing anything back into the economy.
Well, yeah.
When's the last time?
Hijacked. Go ahead, man.
When's the last time we've actually used antitrust laws?
That's the big question that I've always been wondering myself.
Oh, yeah, when Microsoft refused to bribe the government. I forgot about that.
Yeah, the 1990s. Fucking, you know, I mean, they did that shit. But, like, all right, so, like, corporatism kind of, like, liberalism, and again, like, liberalism is corporatism. Like, motherfuckers, like, think that they're two separate things. They are the same thing, right? Because, like, yo, liberalism comes out of the merchant class. Right. You know what I mean? Because like liberalists were motherfucking like they were fighting against the fucking monarchs and the states that, you know what I mean, they came up against. And so like fucking these liberalists were, you know what I'm saying, the merchant class of these fucking cities, the aristocracy. And like they've literally destroyed all the culture and heritage inside of this fucking country in the past fucking like 60 years at this point, right? Go back to the 1960s. And they've stood here and destroyed everything, you know what I mean, that like we had as a culture, as a heritage, as, you know what I'm saying, our fucking basic humanness, I guess. Humanity, our basic humanity was like basically just stripped out and sold to the fucking highest bidder. Right. And it's to be expected because of, you know, I mean, liberalism is fucking cancer. Right. And I think that's another reason why liberalism failed. You know what I mean? Like, because Malcolm X was right. Legit, like, yo, you shouldn't stand here and beg for a plate at somebody else's table because you're just going to destroy yourself. And we shouldn't all be considering ourselves down on our luck billionaires because we're not.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
it's
We're human beings.
it's
I
not that they
consider myself.
destroyed
I
it.
consider myself down on my luck, but definitely not a billionaire.
The thing is, it's not that they destroyed it. It's they started out with demonizing it and dismantling it. So I don't think they destroyed it at all. I think they actually took it and manipulated it and utilized it to their own personal gain and profit. And people who were unaware of what was going on because, for one reason or another, it just allowed it to happen because they didn't understand. Like, you're being taken for a fool. You're getting pennies on the dollar paycheck right now, but you don't see the long-term implications of how detrimental and how devastating this is going to be to society in the long run. You're just doing it for a quick paycheck, and now we're suffering the consequences of it.
Yo, look, man, the Menace Show, my brother, fascism is not a real thing. All right. Understand something. Fascism, okay, has never actually been it was an Italian name for a political party, right? It's like saying like Bull Moose, right? When it comes to goddamn fucking Theodore Roosevelt, right? Legit, like it's literally just a name of an Italian fucking, political group that wanted to stand here and reinvigorate the country through the ideologies of fucking nationalism, right? But fascism is not a real thing. Like, yo, it's just not. It doesn't exist. All right. And there's a reason why, like, yo, if I stood here and I asked you what a monarchy was, or a democracy, or a republic, or a communist society, or a fucking social or a socialist society, right? You'd be able to like at least name one thing, right? Like, you'd be able to name like one part of that fucking government that would exist out of all of them, right? You'd at least have one thing that would exist. When you say fascism, there's not a fucking thing you can name, right? Because, like, yo, legitimately, like, yo, like there is nothing, right? Because it doesn't exist, right? Because it's not a real fucking thing. It's literally like, yo, fascism is what they call anything that's anti-fucking liberal in the end of the day.
And I'm still waiting for a clearly defined parameter of what is a fascist government, because
it's not real.
I keep getting conflicting information.
It's not real. We've had this meeting. We've all had this conversation. Every one of us in this fucking chats had this conversation because it's not a real thing. Like, me and Dogu, we got into this last time we talked, right? Like, and we're like, yeah, it's not real. Because literally all it is the name of an Italian motherfucking goddamn political party.
I mean, it's an effective smear term. That's about the best I can come up with, because what is fascism? Is it nationalism? Is it socialism? Is it communism? Because there are aspects of communism to fascism. Is it corporatism? Well, there's aspects of that too.
FDR was a fascist by fascist, like, fucking, goddamn fucking like definitions.
I can't even say that
FDR was more of a fascist than Hitler or Mussolini was.
Well, I can't even say that it's an effective, like, warmongering platform, because, well, we've had better warmongering platforms than fascism. It was called Maoism.
It's not a real thing because it's not real, right? It's not a real thing.
And Alex, I'm going to disagree with you about it's government control. No, fascism technically is not government control, because if the Nazi Party is indeed a thing, then it's socialism and nationalism, which is antithetical to government control. So that can't be fascist. Hey, what is fascism?
The Menace Show. No, like, fascism is not a real thing. It's just not, right? Okay, so, like, you have to understand Italy's fucking politics, right? No, Menace, that's not it, right? That's not it at all, right? That's corporatism. So, like, all right, Italy in a political sense has, like, a very hard divide, right, between the North and the South. And so the only way to get both of them really to work together, the only time, like, they ever have, like, a functional fucking government as a whole, is when you start bringing up the Roman Empire, right? Because every Italian's heart swells with pride when you start mentioning the Romans, right? Because we all go, yeah, we were Roman, like, oh, we fucked the rest of the world. We gave the world civilization and we were the best and we conquered everybody. Oh, we're fucking great and all this type of shit. And that is the only way to get North and South Italy to fucking come together. And so, like, every time we do that, which, by the way, they've done this recently with, like, fucking 5 Star and, Doku. What was the other joint? Fucking, do you remember?
Oh, fuck. I'm trying to remember.
It was like
I don't
5
remember,
Star,
man.
there was one other one. But yeah, like legit, like all their ads are just full of like fucking Roman ideologies and gladiator clips, and you know what I'm saying? Like the niggas going strength and honor, right?
You know, I will say this. If I was forced, prop gun to my head, if I was forced to define fascism, it would be anything that is in opposition to Marxism. Because that's the only consistent thing I can actually pick out. It's just anything. Really. Well, that's the reason I say it's anything that's antithetical to Marxism. It's just a blanket term that people use to smear people and say, oh, they're the bad guys, and it always comes from far left Marxists. I don't see anybody else trying to clearly define fascism. And when they do, it always comes, again, from far left Marxists that are trying to demonize someone who doesn't agree with far left Marxism. That's the only consistent part I can find.
Right. I mean, like, so this is kind of like my mentality about shit, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like, no, not even really, like, because I've heard other motherfuckers use the fascist shit. Like, I'll be honest, you have a big Twitter, right? Like, you have a giant ass Twitter joint. So, like, you deal with the left way more than I do, right? Because I don't really have an opportunity to deal with them a whole lot. So, like, a lot of the times when I'm arguing with, like, fucking neocons and neoliberals, right? You know what I mean? Like, I'm dealing with, like, normies. And normies, like, use that fascist term all the fucking time, too. But it's because, like, our fucking goddamn education system is trash and nobody knows anything about any place but here, right? Whereas, like, I'm paying attention to, like, what's going on in Europe, you know what I'm saying? And, like, the fucking, like, the guy over there in fucking Hungary and shit, and, like, Viktor Orban or whatever, and, like, the motherfucker down in Brazil and shit, and then, like, a dude's over in motherfucking, the guy up there, the Dutch dude who trying to run as a fucking white supremacist neo-Nazi fucking anti-fucking immigration motherfucker, right? Like, I pay attention to everything that's going on all over the place, and I stand here and I go, man, listen, like, you got to understand that, like, if you don't, like, understand a nation and you try to, like, quote something that comes to it, yeah, right, like, fucking, so fascism, all right, so menace, fascism is literally the same term as faggot, right? It's a bundle of sticks binded together. Right? You know what I mean? Alex Chung, here's the thing though, right? That's every government. Legit, does anybody want to pay taxes? No,
that's
no one
the
wants
thing.
to pay taxes. Right?
I can take the term fascism and I could say we could be collectivist, we could be nationalist, we could be communist, we could be capitalist. I mean, define fascism for me.
It's not a real thing. Right. Again, like, this is the whole point. Like, fascism is just an Italian nationalist party, right? Which they have all the fucking time. Every election, there's a nationalist party of fucking Italy because it's the only party that can actually win and have the North and the South come together on it. It's the only one. La Liga. It's La Liga and motherfucking 5 Star, right? We're the two parties here recently, right? So when you have, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's the thing. It was only, you only saw Antifa, the anti-fascist, antifascisto, come up in response to fascism when you saw hyper-nationalists, again, collectivism, start pushing back against Frankfurt-style Marxism. That's really the only defining factor I can find that has held true is fascist essentially means I'm not Marxist. No,
okay, so, like, here's the problem. Like, all right, so when you stand here and have a nationalist mentality, right, and want to have like fucking individual, when you have a nationalist mentality, want to look out for your people, right, that is anti-corporatist, which is anti-liberal, right? And so these giant liberal countries who, you know what I'm saying, their people don't care about, you know what I'm saying, like their heritage or their fucking country or their people or their fucking communities or their families, like us, right? Where we will fucking stand here and sacrifice everything at the means of fucking profit. Like, yeah, we will, everything in our whole fucking society is up for grabs if it means we can turn a buck, right? We will run over the fucking fascist in the world, you know what I'm saying, with our fucking military and shit, and with our, you know what I'm saying, like, our hard power throughout the world and our trades abilities and fucking our ability to stand here and go to the UN and dictate terms and things of this nature, right? Because, like, yo, we don't want any country where legitimately we can't fucking just have people go in there and do trade and be free to be able to fuck them, right? You know what I'm saying? And this is the goddamn problem in the end of the day. And this is the shit that, like, yo, fucking, like, motherfuckers really don't understand, right? It's the liberal order, the motherfuckers led by, like, fucking England and, you know what I'm saying, fucking France and shit, versus, you know what I mean, everybody the fuck else. And I mean, this is why, like, we had such a problem in places like Afghanistan and Iran. That's why we have problems, like, you know, with people like Iran or Iraq or Syria or whatever, because, like, legit, they don't want to just do business on the fact of doing business. They have cultures and heritages and values, and we fucking hate that shit because, like, yo, it gets in the way of motherfuckers turning a fucking profit.
That I can't disagree with, because
I know
we have two aspects of society where, well, to be blunt, I might piss some people off here by saying this, but it's a reason that people don't like the more traditionalist aspect of political parties here in the United States. When somebody comes in and says, I don't really care about your corporatist bullshit. I don't care about your globalist bullshit. I don't care about your bottom line. I don't care about your profit margin. I'll actually go out of my way and I'll lose fucking money because I care about culture, customs, and traditions. I'm a nationalist and I'm a populist. And that all of a sudden gets people's penny in a bunch really fucking quick. But if that's what fascism is, you know what? It's better.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Well, then it's better than globalism, corporatism, and Marxism.
Yeah, I know. Right. You know what I'm saying? This is why, like, you know, we're kind of politically homeless and shit. Right. You know what I mean? Because of the fact that, like, you know, like, I'm not a reactionary, right? Because, like, I don't believe in the ideology of having a king, because I think that's fucking retarded, right? And I can't be a communitarian, right? Mostly because I can't pronounce the word. But secondly, right, because of the fact
I mean, if that was the requirement, Tom, you'd definitely be voted off the tribe.
Right.
Well,
secondly,
like,
because of the fact that, like, most of these motherfuckers are, like, you know, like Harvard, you know what I mean, and Yale and whatever fucking fuckheads. Right. Go ahead, PK. Go ahead, my nigga.
We all are reactionaries in that we are reacting to liberalism.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Right. But I mean, like, reactionary in, like, well, reactionary in, like, the classical sense of reactionary, right? Which is, you know what I'm saying, like, fucking, when a reactionary is usually an individual who is moving from the, like, traditional right wing, which is like the royalty, fucking monarchy type of ideology. You know what I'm saying? That's a reactionary.
More authoritarian.
No, it's a reactionary, right? So Hitler was a reactionary, right? Mussolini was a reactionary. These are individuals who wanted to have, you know what I mean, Fidel Castro was a reactionary. People who became what? Kings, right? Basically, in all but fucking name, right? That's what reactionary is, right? It's fucking when you're trying to have one man in charge, right? That's a reactionary movement. That's literally like that's a political definition. It's not, you know what I'm saying, like, actually, like, oh, we're just reacting to some shit. That's like the political definition of it and shit, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
I would moving towards the authoritarian side of the spectrum.
I would say it's more of a pushback to revolution. When you when you see a rapid and extreme change in a culture or society and you react as a response to it, I would say that's a reactionary. I don't necessarily think it has to entail becoming authoritarian or even oligarchical.
It is.
I mean, I think it lends
Oligarchy.
I think it lends itself to that, but I don't think that's inherent.
We live in an oligarchy, right? You know what I'm saying? Like when you're reactionary, you usually tend to be against an oligarchy or an aristocracy.
Oh, I'm not saying we don't live in an oligarchy right now. I'm just saying that in terms of the reaction to an extreme societal change.
It's a classical political definition, right? It's like saying you're a fucking progressive or a liberal or whatever it is, right? Like, being a progressive doesn't mean that like you're actually trying to progress shit. There's tons of progressive motherfucking ideologies inside of progressive fucking movements, right? But like what I'm saying is like there's just a term of definitions of what a reactionary is already to begin with. You understand?
Okay, that's fair. I'll give you that.
When you say reactionary, it literally means you're trying to reinstate the fucking monarchy.
Yeah,
that's what that means.
Well, historically,
maybe neo-reactionary is better, but like,
I would say it's more of a knee jerk.
Right. But then neo-reactionism is dominated by like Moldbugs type of ideology and a bunch of other people. And what up? Let it be crime. But
I'll just make sure you recognize it. We saw your ass, nigga. Right? You know what I mean? Fucking like, yeah, I'm just like, a reactionary throughout history as a whole has always been an individual trying to reinstall the motherfucking monarchy. It's kind of the deal, right? And it's always a right wing, like a French right wing. You know what I'm saying? Like a French House of Commons right wing. You know what I'm talking about? French Parliament right wing.
I get what you're saying, and I would say that happens more frequently because traditionally that's the type of societal structure that we've had for good reason, in my opinion. But I still would argue that it's a knee-jerk reaction in the opposite direction, and I think it could go the opposite direction. It's just it doesn't happen nearly as frequently because, as this topic of conversation has discussed, the progressive liberalism mindset idea of things falls apart far quicker than the alternative. So you don't get to see that
has to do with the fact is that it's built on the idea of progress itself, but progress is not always a straightforward road. Like, we just recently had that conversation on Discord here, where some fucking troll was coming in trying to promote the idea of a liquid nitrogen battery. And while the idea has merit into and of itself in solving energy storage problems, it's still an untested concept. So, like, when you think of liberalism in terms of progress, moving forward, you're going to find stumbling blocks. It's going to be like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and then eventually you'll kind of reach that breakthrough where it's 3 steps forward and it's all for the better. But the thing is that they're trying to implement all these new ideas at once, and it's not working because you can't implement all these new ideas at once.
Well, that's not it. You're fighting against human nature, but fucking Jim McIntosh, the league, gaming yelling. I said La Liga, right, which is an Italian political party, which is like a nationalist, right wing, anti-immigration party, right? It's called La Liga, and he said gaming and yelling went the league, right? Yeah, that's what it was called, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's just wanted to, put that motherfucking out there so you understand.
The league, it's the literal translation.
The La Liga, right? It's just like Ferrari came out. All right, they had like a fucking supercar war, like about I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, something like that, where Ferrari, Porsche, and McLaren all came out. They had the McLaren P1, the Porsche 918 Spider, and motherfucking Ferrari, La Ferrari, right? It's the Ferrari, right? You know what I'm saying?
The Ferrari, the Ferrari of all Ferraris, the super Ferrari of them all.
Italians are weird, right? At the end of the day, we name things on odd ways, right? But all right. So progress or progress sakes will always bring on risk. That's not it, right? So the issue is that you cannot continue to treat human beings as if they're not humans, right? That's the problem. And that's why liberalism is failing, is because liberalism is treating human beings like they're not human, right? You can't classify a human being as and I mean, as something other than a fucking animal that has to live and breathe and, you know, what I mean, fucking work and eat and all these type of things. Like they're all encompassed, as well as, like, you know, what I mean, love and fucking have somebody talk to you. It's why, like, if you have a baby and you don't touch it, it will die. Right? You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what it's hitting for.
They've been trying to turn people into an asset, like an actual like bank asset.
Yeah, basically that, and on top of that, like, they've been trying to divorce you from your fucking community and your family, right? In the name of motherfucking standing here, giving you an opportunity to become part of an aristocracy that really doesn't give a fuck about you. You know what I mean? But it will fucking create a larger merchant class, which fucking will stand here and vote for, you know what I mean, the fucking means of the merchant class. Which,
well, I gotta say, they did a good job of separating me from my community. The problem is they cast me out of it. So, there I go.
Yeah, man. Jacob, go back to the beginning of this bitch. Like, this whole thing's worth listening to. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of the motherfucking point and shit, right? Now, that's kind of where things are. Like, you cannot be a human being without being a human, right? It's fucking like you have to embrace your humanity as a whole, and you have to be a part of community and part of a family and part of what you are. And if you don't, you miss that. That's why it is like we're online here having this conversation. That's why, like, you know, I mean, we're in these Discords or on Twitter groups or whatever it is that you do. It's because of the fact that, like, we don't have these social circles that we should have in our neighborhoods. But because of the fact that, like, all these things have been fucking dismantled and robbed away from you, and we've all become like these hermits inside of our house where we don't deal with our neighbors and we don't have friendships, we don't have shit outside of this. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're seeking it on the internet. We're seeking it to, you know what I mean, fucking try and fulfill these basic needs and shit that all human beings actually already have. And liberalism
me in a nutshell,
the main cause of us not having these fucking things.
Well, some of this kind of goes back to my original point. When you look at what liberalism has tried to do throughout the, not just in our modern era, but throughout the centuries, where you have things that are tested, that are tried and true. Like, this is how society, how humanity has always worked, always operated, and it works. It's functioned, it's worked well, it's been good for people, regardless of who you are throughout history. And yet you have individuals, whether they consider themselves to be intellectuals or forward thinkers or progressive or this or that, and they try to push society in a direction until it gets to such a point where that society, that utopia, that Candyland utopia that you're trying to constantly strive for, fundamentally breaks society, because that's not how humans work. It doesn't work. It never has. And you get to that point where you push so far, it breaks society down. And ultimately what ends up happening, and like what we're talking about, why does liberalism fail, is because you break down the fundamental aspects of what makes us human, what actually keeps society together. And those societies collapse under their own weight, because what you're talking about, what you're trying to push, what you're trying to advocate for, aren't sustainable. It's actually self-destructive, and it becomes so detrimental to the point that it becomes unsustainable, and you start to see people devolve into something less than human.
Ow.
Yeah,
you're talking about, Doku. It hurts.
It's worth noting that this is something that takes like generations to see the full effect on, right? Like, understand that, you know, if you're one of these classic, like, own the libs Ben Shapiro types who's looking at like these bug people who are living in the pods, right? Understand that your grandparents probably, if they were being honest, would look at you the same way as you look at those people. And the same thing recurring back for like 200 years at this point. Like, it's taken a long time for stuff to get this bad. And
I'll be honest, like, I'm super happy about the fact that, like, my grandparents were kind of scared by me.
I might be slightly controversial here, but I just want to state the honest truth about this, so that people can have a perspective. You don't have to agree with me on this one. So we've gotten to such a point in society where you can have children who haven't even gone through puberty, but you have adults who have gone through puberty who are telling children, just because you like to wear a dress or want to play with Barbie dolls, that you're a girl and not a boy. And therefore, you have to make a life-altering medical decision that you can never take back. And let's be perfectly honest about here. Let's look at the statistics. That's the highest suicide rate amongst any demographic. I'm not saying this is a phobic or this or that. Like, that's just the statistics. If you don't like it, not my fault. It is the statistics. You
I swear to
cannot
God.
deny it.
Well,
Anyone tries to tell my kid that, I will
let
smack
me
them
add
across
this.
the face and then
All
bury
right,
them.
here's the problem.
Well,
Here's
let me-
the problem.
let me-
Wait,
well-
no. I'm not gonna let you finish that. All right, because like I'm gonna tell you something, and this is important, right? Because I was thinking about this before, like I just switched back over to my regular internet. What you're talking about is a symptom of a disease, right? And the disease is this: what men and what families got as the reward for this liberal ideology was the fact that you had the opportunity to have a home and a family and the authority and motherfucking respect to be able to fucking stand here and hold it together, right? You became the king of your own household. Like literally, like fucking they said, your king's your fucking house is your castle. That's what it used to be. And when we were robbed of this, right, through, the mentality of giving females rights so that they could stand here and go to work and pay fucking taxes and consume goods, right? That destroyed, you know what I'm saying, the ability of individuals to stand here and have the opportunities to be fathers and be husbands and be brothers and grandfathers and all the things that come with it. And these basic principles are some very simple things that are the foundations of why it is that we exist as creatures. And so the transgenderism that you're seeing throughout our fucking society as a whole, right, is because of these ideologies pressing against. It's an adaptation that human beings are having and going, why is it that I would respect my gender? Why is it that I would follow this gender role? Why is it that I would have this societal role as a whole if I don't have the opportunity to fulfill this?
Because you're promised something, and that's the thing. People are promised something because, if you're this or you're that, if you're this gender or if you're this ethnicity, or if you identify as this or you identify as that, you're promised some sort of higher position in the societal hierarchy that has been created by what we're talking about now, progressive ideology. And it comes and it can only exist with the rejection of what is, to be blunt, traditional ideology, whether it be traditional societal structures, traditional gender structures, traditional gender roles, which is what the left absolutely hates that one. But I'm sorry, men do the hunting, women do the gathering. Women take care of the kids, men fight the wars. It's this complete, absolute rejection of basic human nature that has led us to this point where society itself is completely collapsing. Not because, society is intolerant or this horrible thing. It's like, no, you're completely rejecting the basic biological nature, the basic societal structure that has existed and has built up.
Why?
Because of progressive ideology.
No.
I would argue it's because of progressive ideology, because progressive ideology completely rejects that fundamental premise.
No. Try again.
Why do you think it is?
Dig deeper. Right? That's the important. Dig deeper, my brother.
Well, there's only other one explanation. That's the only explanation that would be if it's not a rejection of
dig deeper.
If it's not a rejection of what basic human nature is,
why?
then it's intentional.
Why? No, there's no intentional, right? But you have to ask why.
If it's not intentional, then I can't think of a reason outside of somebody is benefiting because of it.
Well, yeah, of course. The entire society's GDP benefits because of it.
So then someone has to be benefiting from it then, which means somebody has to be pulling the strings. It has to be intentional.
TK. You still here, man? You sleep. I think TK passed out on us. Right. Yeah. All right. So TK has a really great stat about this. Females spend something like 400 times the amount or 400% more money than males do in the consumer fucking market, right? And
yes.
When you stand here, or no, single females spend 40 or 400% more than fucking married females do, right? And so this ideology of having the ability of females to remain single as a whole, right, is an economic principle, right? And the idea of standing here empowering females and destroying the family supercharges your fucking GDP.
Well, that goes back to the sexual revolution in the 60s and 70s.
Okay, so once you have this ideology permanently cemented, right, what is it that, you know what I'm saying, human beings are going to do as far as their gender roles are concerned when you no longer have the opportunity to have a family because it's better for your GDP on a national level to fucking have females be single?
Well, congratulations, you just doubled your workforce.
Well, no. What is the fucking gender roles going to end up doing socially?
Oh, women and men at that point in time doesn't matter. Like male, female at that point in time doesn't matter. As long as you can do your job, then it doesn't matter what you got between your legs.
Men show it. Yeah, that's females as a whole. Single female spends something like, Alex Chung, I think that's a number to TK. You here yet?
Yeah, sorry.
Another beer.
It's cool, my brother. It's cool, my brother. All right, so explain. Tell me that fucking stat about single female.
Oh, okay. So, first of all, females in general make up like 80% of consumer spending, right? And then on top of that, you got to understand that and this is me remembering a stat off the top of my head. I need to dig this up. But a single female spends 70% more than an entire family. So, because like the thing is, remotely, when you are a married woman, you actually have a decently high savings rate because when you're a married chick, you have a dude who is there who will constantly like be doing math, and like just the fact that someone actually does the math on a purchase before it happens lowers spending and increases savings rate.
So he's there to check herself before she wrecks herself.
Right. So now
for it.
Now with this stat put out here, right? Because like I wanted TK to bring it out because I wanted he's the one who fucking brought that shit to me, and I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway, right.
All right. So then obviously, of course,
with this mentality understood, okay. Understand that every piece of advertising and media that you fucking see on your TV or your internet or your fucking Twitter, your YouTubes, your Facebooks, your Instagrams, your fucking whatever that's bombarded in front of our faces all day long for the past fucking 15 years have all been aimed at single goddamn females, and it reinforces the goddamn path, especially when 34% of them all go to fucking college. Right. And this ends up leading you into a point of where individuals are no longer going to respect the gender roles inside of the society because the whole society and the corporate structure is moving towards keeping females fucking single.
Which means, obviously, of course, if I'm going to be looking at a society that is primarily consumer based and I want to maximize my profits, I'm going to move my production facilities to the cheapest areas possible, i.e., China, Vietnam, Turkey. And I'm going to be selling in the highest demographic markets, which, of course, I'm going to start trying to promote things like, well, I don't know, single motherhood and feminism and abortion, because, well, that's my highest paying consumer demographic. I'm going to maximize my profits, which is pretty much what that would suggest. I'm maximizing profits.
It's also worth noting that like you get a twofer with all this gender non whatever stuff because it means you can sell all the same cheap bullshit in a whole bunch of different colors with a couple different labels on it and charge an extra premium for it while still making it like impossible for people to know like who might actually be interested in them because like if you make up your own pronouns like which people straight up do like they will straight up invent their own pronouns on the fly.
I just don't care anymore about fucking pronouns.
I mean, I get you, but like my point is that like it makes mate select like the less manly you are, the less females you attract. The less feminine you are, the less males you attract. Basic concept.
Honestly, it does make sense though.
And then once you add that to the fact that corporations are the individuals who will lobby governments and educational systems to stand here and promote ideologies that are positive for their corporate structure and their bottom line, what's going to end up happening there, Doku?
Well, Pinoid, what do we always say? Follow the money.
Right. So then is this really a progressive ideology that's being pushed, or is it the fact that the corporate structure needs and wants this to maximize their fucking profits?
No, it's corporatist. I mean, it makes sense. I would want to expand my consumer demographic as much as possible by any means necessary. And if that means moving jobs to China and then convincing people that they're females and then convincing them to get abortions and have them go out and buy a bunch of purses because that's how they emotionally cope with things. Like, yeah, by all means, I'll promote that every day, all day, every day, because guess what? I don't care about the fucking structure of society. I'm here to make money. And I say that as a capitalist.
My life is fucked over before corporations to make a buck.
Yep. And like a prime example of this is like it is basically illegal to not illegal. Like there is no circumstance under which like in the regulations right now where you can give like a boy or a teenager who is not like getting along too well as far as their hormones are going without an extreme amount of basically cherry picking on doctors and spending a ton of money. Like without that, there is no way for you to get a little boy estrogen suppressors, right? Even if they might have some sort of like either environmental or genetic problem, which yeah, if a young man has too much estrogen in them, that will mess them up, that will confuse them. Same like vice versa with females. If females have too much testosterone, that makes them like weird. It makes them develop oddly. And so there are a lot of legitimate uses for cross-sex hormone blockers, but it is almost never used that way. Even though it's the same fucking drugs, you just gotta prescribe them exactly the opposite way that they're doing.
I mean, there has to be profit involved because, and if you look at it, if there's not profit involved, then what's the point?
Yeah. The problem is that like if you did it this way, then you treat like some minuscule percentage of the population and you would only have a small amount of customers. But if you do it the other way and you medicate normal people to make them abnormal, then you can sell to the majority of the population.
I mean, understand something. There's a reason why, like, I don't fight against leftists, right? I don't fight against progressives and shit. I don't, like, you never hear me screaming about, like, AOC or the leftist agenda. You don't hear that coming out of my channel. There's a reason. It's because, like, I understand, like, how things operate, right? And I'm just standing here going in my head, like, why, Big Pun had a line. He said, fuck these thug niggas, show me the boss, right? Like, yo, like I'm not here to like deal with like the bullshit on the bottom. I'm not interested in fighting my fellow man who's basically just being manipulated and destroyed because of the fact that like he doesn't understand what the fuck's going on. I do. Right. And so like I'm gonna mention what's really actually happening and like why things are happening the way they're happening. I think that's more important for us to understand, and especially like because like I'm doing a shit ton of research into these things constantly. I'm always like fucking just trying to learn and educate and build, you know what I mean, get my mental right, you know. And this is why, like, you know, like Doku, you got a large platform. I feel like, you know, you should know these things as well.
I kind of knew what you were talking about. It's just I wasn't sure what direction you were going to take it in. I will say this, it's kind of the same direction that I've been trying to point on because I focus mostly on the financial aspect of things rather than the social aspect of things. But there's one thing I've been trying to tell the people that they just don't want to hear as of late. Do you think Biden's actually going to go through and close any of these tax loopholes or actually try to tax the multi-billion-dollar multinational corporations that are his multi-billion-dollar donors? Because if you think Biden's going to close the loopholes that all these multi-millionaire career politicians use to hide their money and shuffle it around, or go after his, again, multi-billion-dollar multinational corporations that donate to super PACs that help get these fucking assholes elected. If you truly believe that, I don't know what to tell you, man, because he ain't gonna do shit.
Nah. That's about as likely as him actually meeting with the so-called leaders of BLM.
Yeah, he's not gonna do shit. The only thing he's gonna do is he's gonna find ways to screw over not the poor, not the rich, but he's gonna screw over people like you and me. That we're gonna be the ones floating the bill.
Like yo, look, you have to understand that, like yo, when you hear liberalism, you need to hear corporatism, right? Like yo, because that's what this is. It comes out of the merchant class of Europe. That's what this ideology comes from. It's who it serves.
AOC has the IQ of a sock puppet because she is a sock puppet.
I mean, you're not wrong. She literally auditioned for her role.
Think about it like this, like yo, like Florence and you know what I'm saying, like Naples are coastal cities that ran things. London's a coastal city that ran things. Paris is a coastal city that ran things. New York is a coastal city. LA's a coastal city. These are the same fucking people. There's no difference.
And what do coastal cities export? Shit that's produced in the interior. It's always been that way.
It's that simple, right? These are the same goddamn people. Like, yo, the whole thing has been the same people. It's the merchant classes motherfucking mentality. That's what this is.
Yeah. And it's worth noting that, like, it's not just these coastal cities that tend to think alike. Most mountain people tend to think alike. We out in the plains and the Hornlands, like, we are the Russians of America. The only difference is that, like, we do not freeze for half of the year, and we've got rivers that run from north to south instead of south to north, like, which are critical differences. But
that's
like,
kind of important when it comes to trade, you know, kind of important. Right.
And climate, but like the cultures aren't all that different, right?
Yeah. Right. And on top of this, like, when you hear the word liberal arts, right, you know what I'm saying, in colleges, like, you have to understand this is really important. Like, really important.
I hear useless cunt when you put those two words together.
Okay, well, like, here's do you know what liberal arts are? Like, do you know what these fucking classes were formed for?
No, I don't, because they keep using those as a reason to just dip out of college early.
Hey, here's what it is, okay? Liberal arts and liberal arts degrees, right? You know what I'm saying? Humanities degrees, these are liberal arts degrees. What they are, okay, are literally courses that are made for motherfucking aristocracies and royalty, right? It's for individuals who are going to be ruling over people, right? So they can put them into place, like the kids of kings and nobles and shit, right? Who tend to be like pieces of garbage. Like, you ever seen John Wick? Ad hoc?
Yes, I have seen all three.
Okay, now you remember that in the first movie where there was that little Russian kid who came in and killed that dude's dog?
Yes.
Well, if you want to avoid that, you put this kid in a liberal arts program, right? Because like he becomes, you know what I'm saying, like much more of a humanitarian and nicer, and he starts caring about fucking, you know, poor people and having, you know what I mean, like respect for, you know, human life and things of this nature. That's what these courses are made to do. Problem is, we're teaching them to fucking everybody who goes to goddamn college. And that's why all these individuals had the same mental. That's why. That's where this comes from. That's what this is. What nobody really understands.
Suddenly it explains why they're trying to take the humanities full throttle, and is like the old adage goes, too much of a good thing can be bad for you.
Like, yo, this is the mental. Like, this is what nobody understands. What nobody has any idea about, like, where all this shit comes from, right? Like, yo, this is what liberalism is based off of, right? Yo, it's a way of having, like, fucking stability long-term in your motherfucking culture and in your civilization through education. Right. And this education in liberal indoctrination is so that like you give a fuck when you're a ruler, when you're a ruler's child, who's usually tends to be a piece of shit with a dog in their purse.
This makes so much sense on why the hell moralities have been corrupted to the point where they preach about how good moral people they are when they're actually a fucking piece of shit running roughshod over my life.
Doku, did you know this? Doku.
I think you broke his mind. He is so flabbergasted he muted himself.
Doku, did you know this?
Oh, oddly enough, I'm actually having to take a leadership class right now in order for me to actually get the degree, or not degree, but the certification that I have to have, because I am going to be in a management position.
Yes.
And I'm learning from someone who I actually respect quite a bit. And I respect him for this one particular reason. When you're in a position of leadership, you have essentially three options open to you. You either take a hands-off approach, and people that are good at what they do, they'll fall in line and they'll do what they do, and you don't have to do jack shit.
Yo, TK, listen to this. Yo, remember when I told you this? Go ahead, Doku.
So that would be an autocratic way of doing things, where people who are good at what they do, they'll gravitate towards that job. You don't have to do anything. Your job is going to be essentially what my job is right now, because this is the way I like running things.
And the second one is you had the micromanager. You know what I'm saying?
The second one is you have a dictatorial leadership, in which case you force everybody to do something because, well, you're basically, in my opinion, a prick. But that is an extremely inefficient way of doing things.
Okay, go ahead.
The last one is you have a leader out of necessity. And the one that comes out of necessity comes into a position, solves the problem, but then immediately goes back to doing whatever the hell it is they want to do. And the team goes back to doing whatever it is they're going to do. And then if a new leader needs to rise up, a new leader will. But that's your leader of necessity. The best way, in my opinion, is autocratic.
I explained this to TK a while back, right? Because, like, yo, here's the thing, right? Do you know why that dictatorial motherfucking guy is dictatorial?
Well, there's two ways that dictatorial leaders, two common ways that dictatorial leaders come into power.
Do you know why he is dictatorial in his fucking and in his management style?
Well, there's again, this is what I was gonna say. There's two ways.
Okay, go ahead.
It's either one, his job depends on it, because if he's not a dictator, he doesn't have a place. Or two, nobody else is willing to do the fucking job.
No, that's not it. All right. So, like, your guys, don't stop respecting this teacher of yours, because he's a piece of shit and he's worthless. Okay.
Do or do not respect him.
Like, do not respect him. All right. The reason why a dictatorial leader is because of the fact that he's garbage at hiring and he's insecure. So he doesn't hire anybody who can actually do his job below him. Right. And so therefore he hires lower class individuals who are fucking trash at their fucking jobs. And he creates a situation where he's dictatorial.
Oh, see, that's the point. He's not actually a hiring manager. He is only one person. So there is a difference between being a manager and between being an architect. He is an architect.
No,
he's
no,
not.
like, yo,
he's not the manager.
If you're running an operation, right? You know what I'm saying? And like, yo, you go to HR and go, I need this guy, right? And fucking like they go, all right, they're gonna stand here and they're gonna give you options on who the fuck it is. You know what I'm saying? They have for like, you know, whatever. Like they'll collect applications, and you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, you'll eventually, when you're the manager, you're the individual who will actually make the decision as to who the hell you're gonna fucking actually hire. Right, because like you will sit down with that individual and have that conversation during like a second or a third interview, right? Because like that's the person you have to work with, right? So you know, I mean, like as a manager, you know what I'm saying? Like legitimately, yo, you are going to be the individual who makes the fucking decision as to who the hell it is you're going to have, and you're going to fire people who are fucking worthless. And if you keep people around who are worthless and who fucking stand here and make you to be fucking, you know what I'm saying, more important than what you are and make you be a fucking dictator, then you're a garbage fucking manager and you don't deserve your fucking job.
Honestly, that's the problem, because this is kind of the problem. This is why government is extremely inefficient, because the individual that I'm talking about is an architect, not a manager. So he doesn't have the power to hire or fire anybody. That comes down to the government customer. And not just the government customer, but also the government itself. So the only thing he can do is basically try to conduct things.
Does he have the power to fire people?
No.
Then that's not a manager.
No, he's not a manager. He's an architect.
No, he's not a manager as a whole. Just period.
Yeah, no, he's not a manager at all.
If you don't have the power to get rid of or fucking hire people, you're not managing shit.
Oh, that's the thing. He's not a manager at all. He can't. He doesn't have that power. What he can do is he can tell other managers, you should do this way, or you should do this that way. But he doesn't have the power to fire people. He doesn't have the power to hire people. And it makes the job a lot more difficult, because now you're stuck in a position where, can you influence the decisions of managers? Yes. But can you hire and fire people? No. Which means you have to use coercion as your only tool, and you have to try to bring managers and people in positions of power to come to the right type of decision, which means, yes, you have to be kind of manipulative. And when I say kind of manipulative, I mean very manipulative.
This job.
Like, okay, so like, wait, like, what is this job? Like, if you are not in charge of people, if you can't hire people, if you can't fire people, like, what is your job? What are you doing? I don't understand.
Your job is to solve.
This is literally the fucking role of a husband today.
So, well, I'll tell you what the role of the job is. The role of the job is to solve problems, and if you fuck up, guess what? You get to be the fall guy. So you better be damn good at your fucking job.
Okay, so like, what problems are you solving that aren't involved in like hiring, firing, or telling employees what to do? Like,
because you're not a manager.
Literally the three things you can.
Because you're a problem solver. Your job. So I'll tell you, your job in this type of capacity,
like Doku.
Your job in this type of capacity is to come in and solve problems that other people cannot fucking solve. Which means, again, you have two roles. You either solve the fucking problem, or if you fail at that job, you get to be the fall guy. You're the one that gets blamed so that somebody else doesn't have to take the fall. Which means it's a very high-stake job.
This is not a job.
Yeah, no. It sounds like you're describing somebody that like a manager brings on to just be a patsy and take the fall for him.
Yeah, but you don't hire somebody on. You don't hire somebody on in that capacity unless you think they can actually solve the fucking problem.
No, you're a consultant.
Well, that's what I mean by he's an architect.
No, he's a consultant.
Well,
like, architects can make an architect can make decision.
It's not an architect in the literal sense. This is from a government. This is from a government standpoint. This is from an internal standpoint. What your job is in this capacity
this is literally TFM explaining like why it is that marriage doesn't work anymore, right? Literally, this is his exact explanation. He's like, it's basically you're told you're in charge of these fucking individuals where you work at, right? but you can't discipline them, right? And you can't hire or fire nobody, right? And like, but if the job doesn't get done, it's you.
Oh no, you can discipline them. You can discipline them. You just can't hire or fire.
Define discipline.
So if somebody comes in and says, I'm going to do this, no, that's outside of your scope. You signed this. So you develop a team charter, you develop a project charter. They all sign on to it. You cannot hire or fire these people, but they agreed to that charter. So therefore, their job is defined clearly in that charter, and that they fall outside of scope, then you can refer them to whoever their manager is, and their manager can discipline them, including hiring or firing anybody else who is required to do the job. But you don't have the capacity to do that, which means you have to play manipulator. It's not an easy thing to do, but it is actually a very good job to have because, one, I'm not necessarily involved in the success of this project or lack thereof, but at the same time, I can directly influence it because I can also directly influence the managers because I can set up charters and I can get people to agree to do a certain thing. And if they fall outside of the scope of that, then I can hold them to task. But I can't do anything outside of that.
It sounds like your class is something that is supposed to make HR ladies feel like they have a purpose.
HR ladies are actually our greatest enemy. HR ladies are our greatest enemy because they're the ones that are going to come in and say, you need to do this. And it's like, no, I don't. Oh, no, you do because I'm the HR. Yeah. It's like, nope, I'm not part of HR. And here's the fucking charter and you signed it, bitch. So fuck you.
Yeah. No. It sounds like this is like one level up from HR. Because if you are facilitating communications, that is HR.
Oh, we're not facilitating communications. We're facilitating that project.
Okay. So if you are facilitating action plans, this type of that's HR, dude. You're talking about I know what I've heard you say this 20 times. It's HR. You're describing HR. You're just describing HR with a sack of balls that have been clipped.
Oh no, we don't care about fucking HR. What we care about is making sure that you fucking do your damn job. Do we think
that was the original point of HR?
Okay, all right. Like you understand that HR stands for human resources.
Yeah, again, we want to make sure that you do your fucking job. I don't care if your feelings are fucking hurt. This is the charter. You agreed to it. If I misgendered you, tough fucking shit. You can go talk to HR. If HR wants to fire me, that's fucking fine. But guess what? HR fucking signed the charter too. I don't need your fucking HR shit.
Okay, look, it's been 2.5 hours and my brain's about to explode from this conversation because, if you even consider taking this job, Doku, I will kick you in the fucking dick. All right.
Oh, dude, I don't want to take the fucking HR job because I don't want to deal with fucking HR. The HR.
No. We're talking about this quote unquote architect position that you've been describing.
No. You boys are missing the point. This is a leadership class he has to take. This isn't anything to do with architects or anything else.
Yeah, but seriously,
let me rephrase it for you.
Right.
We make sure that you deliver the fucking product on time and it fits what the fucking customer wants. If somebody doesn't like how we do it, tough fucking shit. That's when you can go talk to HR. My job is not to make sure that you're fucking happy about your fucking job. My job is to make sure that you fucking do the job and you fucking deliver the product on time. That's my job.
Except that's what HR was until it was taken over by females.
Keyword was DK.
Yeah, but still, just because you're doing what HR did 20 years ago doesn't make you not HR.
Oh, you can say we're HR if you want, but if we're HR, then I want to know what the fuck HR is doing right now because they sure as fuck ain't doing HR.
It's a welfare program.
Oh, you're not wrong there. I can't disagree on that one. So
busy work. It's not a welfare program. It's busy work where they pay you to sit around and do nothing.
And why do you think HR hates us?
That is welfare. Ad hoc. Paying someone to sit around and do nothing is welfare.
Like I said, why do you think HR hates us? We're the ones that sit there and fucking tell people, this is your job, fucking sit the fuck down and do it. And they're like, well, you can't do that because it's offensive to so-and-so. I don't fucking care if it's offensive to so-and-so. This is their fucking job. They signed the fucking contract. This is their fucking deadline. Now either they deliver or I'm going to find somebody else to fucking do it.
Yeah, except you can't actually find someone else to do it. You can just refer someone else to tell them to find someone else to do it.